Hey guys, how are you doing today? Today I'm bringing you the continuation of Eldritch Gods. This series is really difficult to make, guys, seriously, because I have to translate it directly from Chinese. But the story is so good that it's absolutely worth bringing it to you. No joke, this has become my favorite series so far. So it's really important that you leave a comment and share this video with your friends. If the series starts getting very low views, I might have to stop covering it because it takes a huge amount of work. I spend practically the entire week working on this video alone. This is one of the most complex stories I've ever featured on the channel. It's packed with time travel, alternate timelines, and all sorts of crazy twists. So at the end of the video, I'll give an explanation for anyone who didn't fully understand everything. But don't worry, I've tried to make the narration as easy to follow as possible. It's super simple to understand, so I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. This story revolves around time travel, betrayal, and marriage. The main character was just an ordinary high school student until the Supreme Creator Goddess suddenly summoned him, along with several other humans from Earth, into another universe. Once they arrived, that Creator Goddess simply vanished, leaving them with the task of defeating the evil entities known as the Eldritch Gods. However, none of his companions managed to complete the mission. They failed to slay even a single god, and it seemed that Linzoi himself had been cursed, unable to die of old age. Determined to return home, he devised a strategy to take down the gods. As part of his plan, he summoned one of the most powerful goddesses, intending to get close to her, and for that reason, he asked her to marry him. Yeah, bro really proposed as part of a revenge plan, commitment level insane. This was supposed to be the perfect scheme to infiltrate the divine ranks, eliminate them, and finally make his way back home. But things didn't go as expected, because that goddess actually accepted his proposal, turning what was meant to be a plan of vengeance into something closer to love. Even so, Linzoi eventually realizes that the creator goddess who summoned them in the beginning had deceived them all, and that her true nature was far darker than anyone had imagined. And so he sets out on a journey to uncover the hidden truths of this world. This story is seriously amazing, guys. I'll say it right now, it's one of my all-time favorites. So if you're a real one, go ahead and drop a like and a comment. No more delays, let's get into the video. After the death of the Supreme Creator, her power ended up being divided into several lesser gods. These gods were known as Eldritts, and because of their battles, the world ended up entering dense darkness. The strength of the Supreme Creator was still alive, trying there to maintain the balance. And to try to save the world, that force ended up summoning humans from Earth, and one of those humans was our dear Linzoi. The guy was there full of dark circles. He was one of the interplanetary travelers who arrived there in this world thousands of years ago. Linzoi, he came with other humans from Earth, however he was the only one who survived. After so much time, he became an almost divine being, gathering a lot of power. Before the tomb of his fellow Earthlings, he asks why he was the only one who gained eternal life. He still felt the pain of losing his friends. These humans, they were summoned to fight the Eldritch Gods. Thousands of years ago, when they were summoned, they gained powers and became motivated. This here, folks, is that typical isekai journey of defeating the Demon King. At the time, 60 years had already passed and they had not managed to defeat any of the gods. The leader of the group, he was already very old and they had not managed to defeat any god, much less return home. Linzoi, he carried the weight of all this, since he never managed to help his friends. The gang's dream there was just to return home. After so much time, he created the Temple of Reality in order to bury the travelers. It had been many and many years that he was there and holding a key. He said that he would need to put an end to it. With that magic key, he begins to perform a summoning. Magical chants are spoken from his mouth, and at that instant, a gigantic magical portal appears. He was summoning one of the Eldritch gods, and tentacles begin to emerge. He calls this divinity the mother goddess Sinua. The creature appears before this human. The thing was very ugly. It looked like a giant matchbox with eyes and horns. Our big boy, he simply puts his hand in his pocket and takes out from inside a wedding ring. He kneels and asks the mother goddess to marry him. That matchbox kind of stutters, asking what that was. Then he shouts very loudly, saying that it was a marriage proposal. The tentacle goddess, she tells the human there not to mock her, but Linzoi says that he is very serious. As she was the mother goddess, the guy imagines that maybe she had a very beautiful feminine figure. The girl, she admires the courage of this human. Then he repeats, saying that he would like to marry Sinua. The guy had already read several books talking about the mother goddess and saw that she had tentacles. There goes another shameless protagonist who likes strange things. Hearing this information, the goddess herself starts wondering where he got those ideas from. In a serious way, he said that he has a very big reason to ask her in marriage. That is because he was a human who became immortal and lived in complete solitude. He would not like to spend all eternity like this alone. In order to summon her, he had researched for thousands of years. That is why he was willing to do anything so that he could have an eternal life by her side. The goddess just keeps staring at Linzoi, and we see that she really had a feminine appearance, and asks if he was really willing to do anything for her. Thus the door opens, and from inside comes out a beautiful waifu, all charming. She was very shy but assured that it was for him to love her forever. The guy was the last romantic on Earth and already goes crouching down, placing the ring on the young lady's little finger. At that moment, she realized that she had accepted a marriage proposal and runs to the side all shy. Moreover, by impulse, she had accepted to marry the mere human. Even though the big boy there, folks, had gained semi-divine powers, he was still a human. She looked back at him and realized that he was actually kind of cute. Trying to control herself, she thinks that it is better to get straight to the point. Linzoi, do you have any requests now that we are already married? My daughter, are you going to ask him that? He wastes no time and says that he wants to have a child with Sinuhe. The girl becomes slightly surprised, and with a cute face she said that they should already start now since she was very good at doing that. It seems that our big boy there got lucky. He married right away a girl without fuss. She asks if he would like to have mixed children. But that did not matter, she says, giving a little laugh, and still says that they should start right now. Wait there. Start here in the middle of the tombs. Yeah, my son, that girl there does not want to waste time, no. At that moment she begins to create a magic and says that the thing she likes the most is to create life. This would be quick, because as she was the mother goddess, she could create life from nothing. Linzoi had understood why she was so strange. Wait there, that is not exactly how I was thinking that we were going to have a child, no. She explained that she has the capacity to create any living species. She could even create a human child similar to him, to take after the father. Our big boy, he became very disappointed. And she asks why he has that sad face, since she can give him a child, which was something he wanted. I am talking about having a child in the human way, doing it like humans do. You all know very well what he is wanting, right? She also realized this and her face became all embarrassed. And unintentionally she activated her tentacles, restraining him. She knew that since now they were married they would have to do this, but it was very embarrassing. The big boy holds the tentacle and says that he is not in a hurry, but if she accepted he would like to start right now. The scene goes to the palace of the descendants. Through a magic mirror someone was watching Linzoi declaring himself to the girl. The redhead asks the skullhead if that really was true. She does not believe that the mother goddess had accepted to marry a mere human, and because of that the girl goes crazy. It is impossible that my lady would subject herself to such sinful acts. The skull says for Lelit to stay calm, because the mother goddess, she knew what she was doing, but in Lelit's head it was inadmissible that Sinhua would marry that lonely fool. Those two, they were assistants of the mother goddess, and Baru, he says that maybe Sinhua, she is planning to use the boy. As he was a time traveler, she perhaps could use his power to win the war of the gods. But Lelit, she does not believe in this, saying that that human, he was a pathetic weakling. I do not want to give spoilers, but of weakling that boy there has nothing. The mother goddess, she was one of the most powerful goddesses, and she had good intentions toward the universe. That was why those two, they were loyal servants of Señorita Sinhua. But for Lilith, the goddess marrying the human, perhaps was part of an ancient prophecy. But upon thinking about that such prophecy, the redhead, she goes crazy. The prophecy said that a human, he would gain the blessings of the gods and thus save the universe. But the girl, she does not accept it, and swears that she will not let that unworthy man be the husband of her mother goddess. Back to the Temple of Reality, our hero, he was upside down. Upon mentioning the way to make babies, the goddess said that she had already read that in some mangas. That girl there is really worth it then. For sure, at that moment she realizes that there was a portal at her side. That meant that her servants there at the palace were watching everything. Could it be that they heard the conversation that we just had? Trying to disguise the shyness, she said that she has something important to resolve with her family. All happy Linzoi, he says that he will go with her, since now they are married. But the girl replies that it is not necessary, because she herself will resolve it, and very soon she will return. Holding one of the tentacles, he said for her to come back fast as she could, and even gives a very romantic little kiss. She had never felt that sensation before and keeps thinking that it is very cozy. All playful, he says that he will feel lonely if she takes too long. And all embarrassed, she runs off, saying that she will return faster than ever, and he will not even notice that she left. Thus she goes away through the portal. The boy, he gives a sigh and very serious. He said that his heart hurt a lot when he stayed close to an eldritch god. That is because those evil gods, they possessed a protection against time travelers. The travelers, they can only return to Earth when all the evil gods are defeated, and that was what Linzoi wanted. The mother goddess, she was part of the fragment of the supreme goddess, which gave life and intelligence to the creatures. Now she was gathered with the other gods after more than 90 million years of war between them. The dates here of this work here are very exaggerated, folks, so start getting used to it. One of the goddesses extends her hand. She was the golden empress and also the dragon goddess, and she questions why they were gathered. Another goddess slams her hand on the table. This was the goddess and commander of light, and says that she hopes that it is a party. The other who appears is the goddess of evil called Naya. And this one here will be very important, folks. You will see. The Lord Dictator of Darkness called Seima, he says that it has been a long time since they last gathered. There was also the Ancestral Titan, who looked more like a little thread doll, and there was also the Divine Beast of the Labyrinth, which looked like a cat. They were gathered there at the call of the Mother Goddess, Sinue. She gathered the gods who are rivals, but she did not say anything. She was only eating. While wiping her mouth, the girl said that she called everyone there to say something important, and ends up showing the wedding ring. All those gods of darkness observed the ring, while she said that she had married the human. The dictator god gives a malicious smile, saying that this seems to be part of an ancient prophecy. And the other goddess asks if perhaps there will be a wedding party. The small god keeps trying to get attention, and Utuchos, she asks why she was saying that to her enemies, since they were in a war. In fact, the mother goddess, she says that she will be absent from the palace of the descendants, and will move to the world of humans. She even said that she will end the war, which leaves Naya confused, reminding you that all these gods, they have been at war since the disappearance of that supreme goddess. These gods of darkness, they were only fragments of the main goddess. The scene returns there to the Temple of Reality. Linzoi, he was worried about the delay of his new wife. He uses magic to light a flame, and at that moment notices the arrival of someone. It was one of his companions who was also transmigrated to this world. This was a spirit that materialized because of Linzoi's memory. The guy makes a joke saying that it has been so long that his friend does not even remember the face that he had. Linzoi, I have been dead for so long that you do not even remember my appearance anymore. Our protagonist said that it had already been 95,820,000 years and 315 days since he had died. Damn, you remember the exact time but you cannot remember my face. At that moment, another of his companions who had also died appears. She asks if Master Linzoi remembers her. The big boy, he said yes, and she was called Shinan, who had transmigrated with him, and she died 90,300,000 years and 133 days ago. The girl, she becomes relieved, because the master remembered her. The guy is so shameless that from that one there he remembered the face, right? He ends up revealing that he was planning to take all of them back to Earth. He made the first part of the plan, which was to marry the mother goddess. He looks ahead and sees all his human companions from Earth who were transmigrated together with him. But all those there ended up dying. He asks for forgiveness and said that there is no way to take them back home without defeating all the Eldred gods. And back at the royal palace, the mother goddess, she was inviting her enemy brothers to the wedding. Linzoi had promised that he would make his friends return home. He tells Estia that he is going to marry in the kingdom of Furoshi, and the knight mentions that it was the kingdom that he had founded thousands of years ago. Linzoi chose that kingdom because it was there that his companions had died. The first step was to eliminate the fifth goddess and recover the soul of his friends. The scene returns to the palace, and the fifth goddess, she was Naya, and even asks there to Sinue if she has already chosen the place where she will marry. The mother goddess, she says that she has not chosen yet, and that she will check with her husband. The fifth goddess suggests getting married in the kingdom of Furoshi, which was exactly the place that she dominated. Sinue's plan was to take the power of that one to end the war between the gods, and so the two of them go to the kingdom of Furoshi. Our protagonist, he was surprised because his wife had suggested the same place that he planned. He wanted to marry, and as an excuse to be able to call the fifth goddess to the wedding and Sinue. And she was also planning that, folks. In other words, the two of them had the same plan, only they did not tell anything to each other. A nun notices the two strangers there in the city, and goes there because she noticed that they were mentioning the church. The two were holding hands with a wedding ring. And after showing the ring, the big boy says that they are newly married and that they would like to marry officially in the church. All embarrassed, Sinue, she says the same, that she wants to marry. However, the nun, she keeps saying that they are very arrogant because they have not even married in the church and already keep saying that they are married. First, they would need to go through an evaluation, and ends up telling the couple to follow her. The boy whispers in the ear of his wife, saying that the kingdom there values marriage very much. She did not have the slightest idea how the human world worked, and asks if the boy knows more information. And you will see that the boy there also does not know anything. Folks, while they walk through the church, he notices a statue of his friend Estia, because it was she who created this church in the past. After arriving at the place, the judges would evaluate if the two could marry. First, a man asks if he has money to pay for the wedding. The big boy, he says that he never needed anything similar to money before, and Sinue, she also said that she never needed money in her entire life. The woman, who does not know that they are gods, asks how people like this can exist. But our big boy, he said that he has a house, and the wife confirms, saying yes, that it was very beautiful. The man understood the reason for the boy to be so confident to marry a beautiful woman, thinking that our little protag was rich and just did not have money on him. Sinue, she begins to describe the house, saying that it has a view of the stars and that it is in a remote region. The woman from the registry office already imagines that the house might be made of glass. And to make the situation worse, in complete innocence, Sinue, she said that his house was the open air and that it was very good, feeling the breeze of the wind hitting the face. They did not know that those two there were divine beings, and she even finds it strange how the girl fell for the talk of that fool. They even say that if the house is the open air, he does not have any house at all. But the girl, she says that the place was very beautiful, full of flowers, and to ruin the situation even more, Linzoi, he said that in his house there were many tombstones, thinking that there would be good news. Furious, the man slams the table, saying that he got a cemetery to live in, but his wife defends him, saying that those are the tombstones of his friends, and making a very romantic little heart. The couple declares that they do not need riches to be happy. The employee asks how that girl is so innocent that she fell into the trap of that creep there. Then she asks how long the two had known each other. Sinue says that she met Linzoi the day before. With that, the employee already imagines that he must have cast some spell to hypnotize the girl, and she even says that in the city there are several followers of the Eldritch gods who are seducing poor girls, and with that face of his there, he was very suspicious. She even keeps saying that Sister Maria, who was the nun of the church, could not allow those two to marry, but the nun says that they should calm down a little and analyze the details better. Upon hearing the woman there speaking badly of the gods of darkness, Sinue, she becomes furious and even begins to prepare an energy with the intention of frightening them, saying that they should ask for forgiveness. If they did not do that, she would end them. Everyone hears that word from the girl and becomes frightened. She then realized that she had lost her calm for a second. They even imagine that she is also a follower of the gods of darkness, and very worried, she becomes terrified of having been discovered. But who appears there to save her is precisely Linzoi, saying that they understood everything wrong. Please, Lin, save me from this situation, otherwise she would have to detain all of them. Staying close to humans made Sinue very nervous. Yeah, as you can see, my wife is a goddess. The girl already turns worried, thinking that he is going to tell everything. If that really happened, she would have to eliminate all of them with her tentacles. But he ends up correcting himself, saying that actually she is a hunter of gods of darkness. The employees were no longer understanding anything. Then he tells that when the girl was very young, she had faced a blizzard there in her village. She was very afraid and went into despair. And who appeared in the middle of the snow were the followers of the Eldritch gods. On that day, the girl's relatives were eliminated by the followers of the gods of darkness. The nun, she became very emotional with that whole story. And the goddess goes there to ask him to keep quiet and stop exaggerating, helping with the little lie. She said that it is because of that she worries so much about those evil gods. The big boy, he turns to his wife, and with his face very close to hers, he said that Sinuhe's hair was tickling him. The girl, of course, became extremely embarrassed and already moved away, while he patted her head, saying to the girl, "Do not be embarrassed." They realized that that couple was very in love, so she decides to explain the situation of those followers of the cult of flames. The nun explains that this cult believes in a demonic being called the Fire King, and they say that this king had received the help of an eldritch goddess, Naya. With a serious look, the woman says that this king of flames has as interest a strong relationship between women, and that all the followers of this cult hated men, and the women only related among themselves. Basically, it was a feminist movement. They even spread posters proposing repulsion toward men. Because of that brainwashing, the girls began to have hatred and disgust toward men. Any resemblance to reality is mere coincidence. At that moment, we see the leader of that cult. She had captured an elf and begins to say magical words into the girl's ear. The intention was to transform all the girls into women who liked women. If you think it is getting strange, it is because you have not seen anything. A redhead appears, and who was there was precisely Lilith, saying that they should go ahead with the plan soon. That girl who looked very much like Naya keeps saying that she already got the offering, and upon approaching the redhead said that she would like to confirm something again. In a romantic way, she asks Lilith why she was wanting to help the Fire King, since she was a servant of the Mother Goddess, because once the Fire King resurrects, he will declare war against Sinuhe. But Lilith said that this type of thing does not matter. The most important thing was to make Señorita Sinuhe realize that men were evil, and that that fool was not worthy of being by her side. The priestess of the cult realized that Lilith was in love with the Mother Goddess, and she was only supporting the enemy side, folks, to make her lady not marry. But according to the registry employee, the sister of the church said that the two of them had nothing to do with that cult. Alright, my daughter, now answer. Are we going to be able to marry? Wait there, young man. Things are not that easy. According to the kingdom, you need to follow some laws in order to have conditions to request a marriage application. The big boy, together there with his little wife, keep reading the laws. At that moment, Sinuhe realized that they would need to buy a house, and it was not just any house. No, it had to be a very big house. She looked at the value and realized that it cost 30 million runes and asked Linzo if it was cheap or expensive. What? 30 million? Yeah, my son. Are you thinking it is like in the time of your parents when you traded a house for a chicken? He even says that in his past a house was worth more or less 200,000. That information ended up hitting him hard, and he says that with 200,000 nowadays you cannot even pay for the bathroom. The registry clerk says that for them to marry the first step is to buy a house, and even says that they need an annual income of 1 million, since by the triangle the base was a house, then an income, a stable life, and lastly love. The two are already in shock. What do you mean love is not that important? Giving a threatening laugh, the clerk there at the registry keeps saying that she will better consider the situation of the two. Since they had great abilities and were hunters of evil gods, they could enter the Adventurers Guild. As an adventurer, they could hunt monsters and get a lot of cash, and with that money they could finance a house, she keeps saying. And that is exactly what the two do. Sinuhe, she ends up pulling Linzoi's clothes. The big boy asks what is wrong, and with a cute little face she asks why it is so difficult for two people who love each other to marry, and even questions why they need to work so much just to buy a house. After all, the two wanted to marry, and that was what mattered. Wait there, did she say two people who love each other? I heard that well. She even says that it would be much better if she simply used her power. She could use her tentacles to cast a curse on all the people of that kingdom. All of that to convince them to accept the marriage of the two. But Linzoi, he pats his wife's head and tells her to stay calm. He even decides to start calling her Naive, because the name Sinuhe was the name of an evil goddess, and people could start suspecting them. Naive, she accepts this new name just to disguise and even comments that she will spend the rest of her life with him. It does not matter whether people accept it or not. And looking there at the church, he says that the two are already married and only want the church license, but what matters is their feeling. He even looks at the girl and says that it is difficult, because in fact they are not from this world, therefore they should adapt. Upon hearing these words, the girl, she becomes all flushed and ends up accepting to do his method of working in the guild and managing to gather some cash. But unintentionally, she ended up releasing her magical tentacles, and our hero had to go there to erase their memory. Every time the girl's mood changes, she ends up releasing those tentacles. At the end of the afternoon, they go to the Adventurers Association. When they arrive there, the guild leader, he apologizes because the receptionist is kind of missing in the last few days. He tells there to Naive that the guild receptionist, she was kidnapped by the cult of the worshippers of Eldritz. And Naive, she becomes all angry, saying that this cult is tarnishing the image of the gods. But our big boy, he tells them to leave that for later, and that they should do the registration in the guild. And all happy, he asks the old man what the process is to be part of the Adventurers Guild. The old man looks at those two young people and does not put much faith that they were powerful. And taking them to a forest, he said that the first part of the process would be to measure the combat strength of the two. Sinue, or rather Naive, she becomes all happy, saying that she wants to participate. Wait there, this young lady is called Sinue. Sinue is the name of an Eldritch goddess, but that does not matter. Our hero is Linzoya. He goes there to touch the crystal. According to the old man, the big boy only needed to concentrate a little mana in the palm of his hands, and that is exactly what he does. The old man was not putting any faith at all, but the boy, he simply destroyed the crystal. Naivia, she was completely astonished, saying that it was very easy, and there was a crystal that cost tens of millions of runes, all destroyed. The old man becomes dumbfounded without knowing what had happened properly. Alright old man, keep passing me the information of the next test. Since he broke that crystal, Nivea became a little sulky, because she could not participate. At that moment he realized that those two young people were not ordinary people, and when she turned to the old man asking what the next test was, he felt a shiver. It was as if the girl, even though she was cute, had a malicious energy. I do not know how such cuteness can present a danger there to the old man, but it presented a very big danger. So much that he clapped, saying that the two were already accepted. They would not need to participate in any other test. That is because folks, test 2 would be a battle against himself, and the old man became afraid. So he simply went there and handed a badge to each of the two, proving that they were adventurers. What? How so? I did not do any test, Neve keeps saying. But the old man he was disguising, saying that they would not need to participate in the test, and already went straight to take a photo to make an ID card. And the poor girl, she began to cry because she wanted to prove her strength. However, the big boy patted her head and said that very soon she will have the chance to show her true strength. Upon hearing that, she became all happy, with her eyes shining, and even kept imagining giving a kiss to her husband, but at the same instant she became all flushed with embarrassment, and as was to be expected, she ended up activating her magical tentacles, grabbing our hero and putting him upside down. Calm down, Neve, why are you tying me up? When the photo is revealed, he notices that there were tentacles. Wait a second, what tentacles are these? At that moment, the two realize that they have been discovered, and he even complains to his wife, saying that now he will have to use the memory erasing spell. The old man starts begging, thinking that the two are going to finish him off, and so his memory is erased. The couple returns to the city. They receive a bonus for having joined the guild. With the money, the big guy comments that maybe they should buy more normal clothes, since theirs attracted too much attention. Thus they go to a store. The author of this work seems kind of obsessed with airbags. The saleswoman with gigantic airbags asks what kind of clothes the couple wants. Our hero says that he wants Neve to wear something very beautiful. He also comments that it needs to be useful clothing for the task, leaving the girl confused. Just by looking at this shameless guy's face, you can already imagine what he wanted, right? But she starts by choosing cute clothes and even thinks that maybe he likes something darker, gothic style. With a cute little face, she imagines herself in the outfit, saying that this way she really looks human. That way she ends up wearing a gothic dress and asks if he liked it. The shameless guy says that the outfit covers too much. Then she turns to the side and asks if now it is better. However, he has an idea and tells Nive to take off the dress, because he himself is going to wear it. What, Linzoy? You want to wear this dress? Thus he puts on the piece and asks the girl if it looks good. Paralyzed, she wonders if her husband really likes women. Completely embarrassed. She already knew that he had strange hobbies, since he liked tentacles, but she did not imagine that he was this weird. Even the saleswoman comments that this is a customer with good taste. I bet she said that just to sell the product. Then the big guy whispers to his wife that actually he is going to use the dress as a disguise. Before she could say that out loud, he covers her mouth. Calm down, my girl, you will understand when I explain it better. Next, she tries on some clothes, and the shameless protagonist just keeps asking for pieces that cover less. At that moment, she sees an outfit that she thinks is very beautiful. And look, this part I will have to soften a little, because YouTube has been on my case. Next, she tries on another outfit that looks very good. I bet at that moment our hero almost had a nosebleed. As she becomes shy, her hair gains tentacle tips. At that moment, the boy has a very big hemorrhage and even gives a thumbs up, saying that he loved the outfit. Feeling blessed, he comments to himself that those tentacles are wonderful. I confess to you that it is even embarrassing to narrate this here. The scene changes. Now it is night. The big guy is using his disguise. Yes, that little gothic dress. When they arrive at the place where he suspected the cult to be, there really are several hooded people. Neves asks what is happening, and the hero, holding a flashlight, just says to follow the flow. Thus, they begin to follow the hooded figures. Sanugi comments that that fog looks familiar, and remembers the woman from the church, who said that several women are being kidnapped by an evil cult. Meanwhile, the people chant an enigmatic song. A white-haired girl turns around, saying that they are about to resurrect the true great king. She looks very much like Naya, and states that only the last sacrifice is missing. Upon seeing her sister goddess, the girl becomes frightened. Linzoe asks if she knows that girl, and Naya plays it off, saying that maybe it is not the goddess she knows. Our big guy already suspects that perhaps Naya is granting magic to the woman. That is why the resemblance. Trying to play it off, the girl asks how he managed to get in there, and if it has anything to do with the clothes he is wearing. Holding the dress, he confirms yes, it was exactly because of it. He discovered that the store was just a front to recruit members for the sect. The gray fog around the people was a magic that made them invisible. Sinuhe even asks how he realized that woman was part of the cult, since she did not seem suspicious. Then the big guy remembers a friend from the past who was transmigrated together with him, a very shameless guy who knew how to notice certain things about women. Further ahead, there was even a man wearing feminine clothes. At that moment, the leader of the sect notices two people whispering. She approaches and asks Lil to check why those two members will not stop talking. The redhead says she will check and already prepares a spell, stating that she will shut the chatterboxes up. However, when she looks back, she sees her very own lady. It was the mother goddess who was there. Hey, she also notices a little redhead with horns. Wait a second. That girl over there, she seems to be Listlet. So the girl backs away and crouched down. She starts to cry, thinking that she was discovered. She even imagines that if by chance the mother goddess finds out that she was participating in this cult, she could be eliminated. And since she was in love with Sinue, she already starts having some slightly wrong ideas. She was truly in love with the goddess Sinue, and this would be a great way to lose her life. The leader asks why Listlet was crouched down and she starts pretending. But since she had already gone this far, she could not turn back. As she stands up, she keeps her back turned and says that they need to continue the ritual. All of this would be to summon the fire god. Linzoi asks Sinue why she was so tense, and she knew that the one there was Listlet, but she keeps pretending, saying that it seems she saw someone she knew, but it was a mistake, and all Listlet wanted was for her mother goddess not to truly fall in love with this goofy boy. Finally, the time had come for them to begin their prayer. I will call it prayer so as not to say something else. The leader ends up launching fireworks. This place was precious because of the founder of the church and also the founder of the organization, Linzoi. She says that those two had disrupted the Fire King's plans in the past. A girl was upside down screaming, and the leader says that thanks to the sacrifice of this elf, they will be able to free the Fire King, and thus the ritual begins. Our hero, together with his wife, they were much farther back, and were not hearing anything. He only heard someone talk about his name Linzoi, but he could not properly understand what they were saying. Sinucci felt that there was something very wrong happening, and they even say that they need to go there and intervene. And when they look at the girl, they imagine that she is the employee of the Adventurers Association who was missing. However, someone ends up appearing there, saying that he will end this party. The blonde, he introduces himself as the hero of Linzoi's organization. He was there to stop the summoning of the fire god. With a flame in her hand, the cult leader keeps asking how he imagines he will manage to do that. And at that moment, she ends up firing a fire illusion. But the boy, in a serious manner, he says that his sword also cuts illusions, and thus he ends up slicing the fire. Sinuan, she finds this incredible and even comments to her husband that everyone there is saying his name. However, she ended up looking at Linzoi because she noticed that he was tense, and at that moment the big guy realized that that little blonde was a descendant of his time traveler friend. Even the appearance of the two was similar. At that moment, our big guy, he takes a deep breath, since his friend's bloodline survived, and even tells Niz that she could stay calm, because that swordsman would take care of it. However, the leader, who looked very much like Na, keeps saying that she will not let that boy interrupt the plans. A battle between the two was about to begin, and with a crazy face, she said that today her lord, the Fire King, would be resurrected. But at that moment, Linzoi, he ends up using a spell at the tip of his finger and fires upward. The people there do not understand anything, and even the leader, she asks what that was. At that moment, all the followers there of the cult fell unconscious. What? How so? What happened? The mist had dissipated, and the little blonde tries to understand. The guy even thinks that it was himself who did that, and starts pointing the sword at the girl, threatening her. He was thinking that it was his sword that had made that power, and ends up firing a burst of energy. A little sad, the girl asks why her ritual had failed, but Little tells Naya that there is no time for her to be sad. At that moment, she ends up summoning her whip, saying that she will fight against that boy. She blocks the burst of energy from the hero's sword. The cult leader, she realizes that she could not give up, but for now they would retreat and would perform a ritual later. At that moment, our hero asks Naya if she also noticed something. He comments that even though he dispersed the mist, it seems that the ritual there was not entirely interrupted. And the blonde, he was also noticing that Naya says that Linzoi is right, since on the elf girl evil tentacles were sprouting, and those tentacles end up attacking the little blonde. The guy prepares to block with his sword, but who appears there to save him is precisely Linzoi. In the sequence, Naive charges at those tentacles, and when she hits them, a big explosion happens. Our protagonist, he had saved the little blonde, and even asks if by chance the hero was injured. The boy, he gets with flushed cheeks in love. He was thinking this girl was very beautiful, especially wearing that little gothic dress. When he is placed on the ground, he says that his heart is racing, and already starts asking our protagonist's hand in marriage, leaving Naive shocked. At that moment, Naive runs out and hugs her husband, saying that they are already a couple. Wait a second, you two are a couple of women in love. Linzoi. He admits that, in fact, he is not a woman, but rather a man, and only used that outfit as a disguise. He even lifts the dress to prove that he is not a girl. Upon seeing that, the little blonde gets scared, but in the sequence he says that he does not care about that, and that he would like to form a couple with him. Immediately, Nivea, she starts asking if by chance her husband has no shame, but our hero hugs his wife, saying that he only has eyes for her. And of course the girl, she gets completely melted with love. And meanwhile, the blonde hero, he realizes that he was pushed aside. Next, they say that they need to check if the elf was okay. The scene changes to the next day, and they were at the church door. Our hero explained the whole story to the little blonde, and he understood everything. Then the guy introduces himself, saying that his name is Heaney, and says that he is part of the Salvation Society that was created by the legendary hero Linzoi. He says that the members of this association are trying to fight all the eldritch gods and even their followers. Our protagonist and Sinue say that they have already heard about this organization. The guy points his finger at himself and says that he descends from the heroes who were transmigrated to this world many years ago. The big guy even says that he is the founder of the Salvation Society and that his full name is Linzoi. But of course the little blonde was not going to believe that. Ah yes, alright, you are Linzoi. Yes, he was imagining that it was just another one of those idolatrous fanatics who kept saying that he was Linzoi. Then the boy said that if by chance he was Linzoi, he should say, the 3 rules were secret words. And Sinue asks if that was some kind of joint code. All excited, the guy said that they were the secret words that identified the members of the Salvation Society. The more secret words you made, the higher was a member's status within the society. So, if by chance the boy there who claimed to be Linzoi knew at least 3 secret words, he would already start to trust him a little more. With a face, he says half of a sentence that belonged to a secret code. And all of this was basically old memes from Earth. And that is why our hero knew all of them, since it was he who brought them to this world. Next, the blonde speaks a little more of the second sentence that he knew. And Linzoi, with a bit of boredom, continues reciting the sentence that was the second code. The blonde was already running out of patience, believing that maybe this really was the true Linzoi. And all excited, our hero keeps fooling around while he was saying the secret words. At that moment, the guy gave in and said that probably this was the Lord Creator and even apologizes for having doubted him. I did not explain the secret phrases because they were Chinese meme jokes. Even I myself could not understand the little jokes. So alright, Sinue, she finds this very funny and even imagines that her husband, he is really a very powerful guy. She even thinks about creating for herself a society just like his, and keeps making some notes on a sheet of paper. And meanwhile, Our Lady was there kicking that creep. Get out of here, you jealous brat. Sinue, she was thinking that these rules were something very serious, coming from ancient knowledge, and a little embarrassed, the big guy, he says that it is not quite that. No, it was more like jokes from time travelers, but he was sad, because all his friends who traveled to this world together with him had died. He looks down and the blonde was still holding his leg. Linzoi runs off and holds the hands of his beloved, and said that if she had interest later at night, he could teach these secret words to her. Since the big guy had proven that he really was Linzoi, the blonde said that he would give more information to him. The guy says that he had been monitoring that sect for about 6 months. He says that an ancient goddess, Naya, she had thrown away half of her power, and some random human girl picked up this power and ended up getting an appearance similar to Naya. So basically the cult leader, she has an evil power of an eldritch god, and since they were hunters of these evil gods, he swears that he would end this sect. That is why he ends up asking the couple for help, and they keep looking there at each other and agreeing to help. Our hero ends up closing a deal. At that moment, the church nun ends up appearing. She was very happy for Linzoi and for Nuji for having saved the church from that sect attack. With that, they also proved that they had a lot of power. Extending her hand, she says that they will be able to marry, but first they would need to buy a house. That is why she would take them to the bank. All happy Najif, she said that it is very easy to earn money. At that moment, Naya was passing near them and said that she had found the time traveler. At that moment, Sinuha realized that her sister was there, and the girl ended up using a spell of magical lines to restrain the big guy. She says that if by chance they do not answer her question, all those people would die. She had linked them through the thread of time. So basically, time there was frozen. Sinue asks what Na was doing there. Then the girl reveals that she wants to talk about the War of the Eldritch Gods. If you made it this far in the video, please leave a like and a comment. It is very easy, guys. It does not even take 5 seconds of your life. Just comment part 2, and you will already help the video a lot. According to Na, she did not have time to look for the morning goddess before, but now it was a favorable time, because the girl there, she would also receive profits. That is why she had chosen this moment to talk with Sinue. The girl already asks if by chance her eldritch goddess sister was trying to deceive her. At that moment, wow, he managed to undo that magic and even told his wife that it was not so easy for her to imprison him. And the two get all romantic with Sinue, saying that Linzoi was very powerful. With her legs crossed, Naya asks how the time traveler managed to free himself. The big guy makes a friendly face, saying that the gods are not that much stronger than him, and even says that he will not let anyone hurt his wife. But with a face, Naya says that she has no interest in hurting her sister, and actually would pass the power to her. The two do not understand anything, right? How are you going to hand over your power and your title? Stretching, she says that she does not want to participate in the Zeldrid Wars, and prefers much more to lead a peaceful life. However, she was not going to give that power for free. What she really wanted was to make a trade. At that moment, she ends up handing over her card, which was a real estate sales consultant card. What she wanted was for the two to buy a house with her. All discouraged, she says that she wants to live in the human world, but it is very difficult to get a job. She had already been fired from several other jobs. But Sinui, she finds this very strange and even asks why Naya is giving up being a goddess to live with some random human using a fire magic. She says that Sinui she would never understand. She had already been visiting the human world for thousands of years. And the girl says that she already had to sleep under a bridge, already had to fight with a dog to eat leftover food, and already earned money picking up trash on the street. And the couple gets amazed, saying that she has a very strong will. Even if she had the power to destroy everyone, she did not have enough power to live the life of an ordinary human. She was the lord of monsters, so she had a lot of power, a lot of destructive force, but she did not have human skills. And to not be fired from her current job, she urgently needs to sell some property, because otherwise, she will be fired. That is why she ends up handing over her business card. 2 hours later, they go to the mansion that Naya sells. The goddess of monsters had given to the mother goddess 1/4 of her power, and the other 1/4 was given to Linzoi. And he even asks where the other 2/4 were. Sinui reminds him that actually that other girl there, the cult leader, kept the other half. And scratching his head, he says that now he remembers. That is why that girl there had Naya's appearance. All in love, he holds his wife's hand and says that now that they have a house, they will be able to have a child. Those shameless ones there do not think about anything else. Thus, they end up going inside the house. And Sinui, she gets very shy thinking about what is going to happen. They end up going to the bedroom, and our hero keeps calling her Nayev. At that moment, she begins to feel strong impulses. You know very well what she is feeling, right? I cannot say. And because of that, she already goes using her tentacles to imprison him. All in love and with flushed cheeks, she asks if by chance now he wanted to have a child with her. Outside, Naya was there observing everything. She did not expect things to be this easy. She had given her authority, her evil power to the mother goddess, so that she could go to her natural form, which is those tentacles. And we see that it was working, since the girl she was very forward. Linzoi, on the other hand, he was not understanding anything. Why did his wife start acting that way? He even asked if by chance some bug had bitten her. The scene goes to Lilith. She did not accept that the mother goddess had fallen in love with a human, and just thinking about him touching his goddess's hair, she already got angry. The cult leader asks what happened to Lilith, and opening a portal, she says that she needs to urgently go to her goddess. That is because she was feeling that something wrong was about to happen. While traveling through the portal, the succubus keeps saying for the mother goddess to wait for her to arrive. And as soon as she arrives at the house where her dear goddess was, Naya already imprisons her, and even tells the girl that she could not interfere. Naya pinches Lilith's cheek and knows very well what she is planning. But we see that it was in Naya's interest that the mother goddess had a relationship with that human, and she even reveals to Lilith that she herself, the goddess of monsters, had given her power to the mother goddess. What Naya wanted was for the mother goddess to devour that boy and then give birth to him again, and thus be able to be part of a prophecy. Yeah guys, I know this here is kind of crazy. Even Lilith was shocked by this elaborate plan. It is explained to us that when the tentacles they are at their maximum strength, they end up completely consuming the energy of a human, and if she did that with her husband, she would possess the energy of a time traveler. The girl, she was very emotional, letting the energy of the tentacles completely take over her body. She even tells Linzoi that she cannot control herself. And noticing this attitude of the girl, he seems to have understood that it was part of Naya's plan, and because of that he becomes serious, knowing that there was something wrong. Immediately he ends up holding his wife's tentacle, and with shining eyes he activates a power. Before that, he even apologizes to Sinuhe, saying that she will have to stay stored in there for a while, and in this way he ends up activating chains on the girl. For having gotten very close to her, his heart began to hurt. This was part of the curses of the Eldritch, which prevented humans, time travelers, from getting close to them. Now that he had already chained the tentacles, he would try to discover more about this plan of Naya. And because of that, he asks his wife to stay there calming down, because he would return. Outside Lilith, she was still imprisoned with those blue threads. The goddess of monsters even starts making a little joke, saying that probably Sinuhe must have already devoured the human. But Lilith understands devour in a wrong way, guys. She starts thinking nonsense, and meanwhile Naz goes to get the baby that will be born because he would be part of the prophecy. But our big guy, he ends up appearing there behind, and asks if Naya had planned this from the beginning. He even makes a joke saying that this short goddess is much more powerful than he imagined, or rather much more cunning. A little serious, she asks how it was that he escaped from the tentacles, and Lilith keeps shouting, asking what that potato jerk did to her goddess. A little embarrassed, he says that they did nothing, and she is just in there resting. At that moment, Lilith realized that this human is much more problematic than she imagined. Probably he had a power greater than the gods. Those blue threads end up breaking. Linzoi tells the succubus to go in there take care of his wife, and as for the other goddess, the goddess of monsters, he would take care of her personally. After snapping his fingers, she begins to feel a strong wind. The tip of the boy's finger was glowing with the magical portal, and in this way she is teleported. Sitting on his throne, Linzoi gives only 5 minutes for her to be able to explain her entire plan. If she did not explain all her intentions, he would destroy her. At that moment, several chains go toward the girl and end up imprisoning her, leaving the girl in a somewhat embarrassing position there. She asks if by chance he is trying to embarrass her, and even says that this will not work, because she is the goddess of evil, and he was trying to embarrass her. Yes guys, he even brings there the spirits of the travelers who died just to see that embarrassing scene. She asks what his objective is, to bring those people to watch the scene. And the boy says that his true objective is to take all the transmigrators back to Earth. Looking at the hourglass, he says that her time is running out. Back at the mansion, Sinuhe and she was lying on the bed with Lil taking care of her. The redhead was wringing a wet cloth. That is because her goddess was with a fever, and this always happened when she released her maximum tentacle power. And thinking well, she imagines that that man there, the time traveler, is someone dangerous whom she should worry about. He was so strong that he managed to deal calmly with the powers of the tentacles, and thinking about this, she becomes a little doubtful if something had happened. She even begins to think that the mother goddess might really have fallen in love with him, and even decides to check under the covers if she was well, but she becomes a little doubtful if this would be right or wrong. However, she ends up removing the blankets and realizes that the mother goddess, she still had the tentacles activated. A little weak and debilitated, she begins to murmur in pain, and seeing that scene, Lilith, she is impacted. She approaches to kiss the mother goddess, but our hero ends up arriving at the last instant. He caught the redhead in the act, and she became extremely embarrassed, and our big guy already ran to put the blanket on his wife. Worried about Naya, Lilith asks what happened to the goddess of darkness, and with a dirty hand, our protagonist said that he had already dealt with her. Turning his back and leaving the room, he says that now the 5th goddess of darkness is no longer a concern for him. Lilith is already in shock, asking what that time traveler did. Could it be that Naya was killed by him? She still keeps imagining him saying that he will kill all the gods, and because of that this girl goes crazy thinking that the mother goddess will also be killed. But our big guy, he was there caressing his wife, saying for her to recover well, and even says for Lid to take care of his wife, because he had some things to do. Since he had gotten dirty, he was going to take a bath. The scene goes to the city of Will. someone was coming out through a portal, and we see that it was precisely the fifth goddess of darkness. She was not dead, guys. Sweating cold, she starts celebrating, saying that at least there is still time for her to go to her job meeting. Otherwise, she would be fired. A little worried, she says that she really needs to sell more properties. Otherwise, she will be screwed with no work at all. And she even thinks that now that she sold the house there, that mansion to our protagonist, she will earn a good bonus. Meanwhile, kid, he was taking a bath in his bathtub. He had already solved the problem of the goddess of darkness, and now the one of the god of fire was left. He had also managed to reduce that pain he felt in his heart when he stayed close to the Eldritch gods. He ends up being surprised with Lilith opening the door, and with a serious face she said that she would like to talk with Linzoi. She approaches and asks why he was approaching the mother goddess and shouting. She said that she would discover his real intentions. The guy says that even if he had some dangerous intention, he would not say anything, and he even stands up, asking if by any chance she would be able to stop him, and the girl keeps shouting, telling him to go sink into the water. He approaches while she was telling him not to come any closer, and the guy did not stop provoking the little redhead, saying that even if he hurt the mother goddess, Lilith could not do anything, but at that moment she ends up grabbing his neck and even threatens him with a blade. She says that if by any chance he is saying that seriously, he would be a dead man. But our big boy says that he is more afraid of that blade on the ground than in her hand, and even reveals that he had already known the 2000s of years ago. The kid, he was one of the writers. That is, he was one of the guys who exchanged correspondence with Senorita Sinue. But the little redhead, she does not believe in this nonsense. But wait there, were you by any chance the Sabu who sent letters to her? At that moment she began to believe in our big boy, and awkwardly scratching his cheek, he said that yes, he was the guy who kept sending correspondences. At that moment Lilith, she became discouraged. That is because this so-called Sabu who sent correspondences to Sinue was a guy who wrote a famous manga, and there the elite gets angry and even climbs on top of him, asking how the guy dared not to finish that story, and even keeps choking the kid, saying that because of him the two were waiting for the continuation of that manga for more than 1,000 years already. The guy is looking like Toga stalling to finish Hunter x Hunter. At that moment the door ends up opening, and it was precisely Sinue. When she looked forward, she saw the two, one on top of the other, and became shocked. Her eyes even widened, asking what the two were doing. That scene was very shameful, and there was not much that they could give as an excuse. Because of that, the little redhead, she became paralyzed and even imagines that now the mother goddess will not forgive her. But instead of getting angry, the mother goddess, she simply got her cheeks flushed, not knowing how to react. In shock, the little redhead kept telling Sinue that it was not what she was thinking. Our big boy said that the redhead should stay calm, because he would explain. Then he extended his hand, asking Sinue to hold his hand, and she held it with her little cheeks flushed, and at that moment he activated a power making her see all his memories, and she discovered that Lilith had entered there in that bathroom to be able to demand answers from him. All of this because the little redhead was worried about the mother goddess. After seeing the memories, Sinue asked Lilith to leave the bathroom because she would like to give a massage to her husband. Redhead, she says that it is all right, and after leaving the bathroom she keeps breathing deeply, and at the same time she is surprised, asking if the mother goddess will not blame her. But at that instant she realized something. Sinue, she was alone together with that idiot, so she tried to open the door, but the boy had placed a seal blocking the entrance. Sinue asks what he had done with Naya, and he said that now they would only need to worry about the King of Flames. Sinue's concern was with the other part of Naya's power, which was in the hand of that priestess. As that priestess had the identical appearance of Naya, that meant that she had taken the power of the Lord of Darkness. That girl was practically a time bomb. If they managed to resurrect the King of Fire, that would be very dangerous. In the middle of the forest, that hero, he was talking with someone through the crystal ball. He was passing some information, saying that the Lord of Fire, he was about to be resurrected. And the hooded one said that they received a message from Linzoi, the ancient founder of the society. And this message, that revelation there, was contained inside that scroll. The redhead, he already immediately asks what revelation was this. He was saying that his body would be reborn, and that he would return to help them. The blonde already starts asking what this means, and if by any chance Linzoi will really return after thousands of years. He even remembers that boy that he found with white hair who said to be Linzoi himself, but he was still not convinced that that was really the founder. In the revelation it also said about a second anomaly that would be even worse than the first. This first anomaly they had defeated thousands of years ago, but this second one was something even worse. After the death of the great creator, his blood was contaminated due to the loss of vitality. Because of that, the gods, who were fragments of this creator god, ended up becoming corrupted. That is why those gods there became evil, and this obscure energy was kind of corrupting these gods. That is why the Society of Heroes was created to fight the gods. Trying to explain here to you guys, at the beginning of the story it is explained that the goddess who created the entire universe, she disappeared, but some people say that she was killed. It is not possible to know for sure. But here Linzoi, he kind of gave some news there to this organization, saying that an evil being is corrupting all the gods. This many-eyed anomaly was a malignant anomaly that was corrupting the power of the Eldritch, and the one who had discovered this was precisely Nay. So she kind of gave her power to other people so she would not be corrupted and transformed into this malignant being. It was exactly because of this that Nay had delivered part of her power to that priestess and the other part to Sinua and to Linzoi. She discovered this whole evil plan of that obscure force, and she told it there to our protagonist, and he passed it to his society. This hooded man was telling everything to the blonde. In other words, the Eldritch gods had been being corrupted for thousands of years, and now it had reached the maximum point. Because of that, they should act in haste and defeat all these gods before it was too late. Our protagonist, he ends up telling part of this to his wife and says that he had already even made the preparations to be able to deal with all this. The guy approaches and holds his wife's cheek, saying that he will do everything to protect her, and approaching the girl, he says that they would need to continue from where they stopped. And all embarrassed, she asks where it was that they had stopped. Whispering in her ear, he says that he would like to have a child with her. The girl already starts to scream after hearing this, but he keeps saying that she would not need to be so shy. Poor Sinue was with her cheeks flushed, and he keeps saying that she looks very cute when she was embarrassed. And so she starts to scream, and the entire mansion begins to be illuminated by the power of the tentacles. Even Lilith gets scared, and our hero is thrown far away. He even ends up with his nose bleeding, saying that the tentacles are very beautiful. It seems that lately only strange works are coming here to the channel. The scene changes to the Adventurers Association. The blonde, she had returned, and when she looks back, she gets scared. That is because she was thinking that Na was that priestess who had kidnapped her. But the girl explains, saying that she is not that person there who had done that. And in sequence, she ends up handing over a business card, saying that she would like to register as an adventurer. The girl, she stays there taking the card and checking Na's appearance. Then she says that the girl could register and even says that she will get some information first. But the old man looks there at that girl and already realizes that she was very powerful. And he even says that lately there are many strange people wanting to become adventurers. And that in her case, she was also one of these strange people. A little embarrassed, Napo, she asks what kind of strange is this that he is talking about. The old man simply asks then why she decided to become an adventurer. She reveals that she was fired from her job of selling properties, and Linzoe had indicated this place saying that she could earn easy money. The elf, she becomes very happy, because it was Master Linzoe who had indicated, and the old man already becomes afraid. My god, that girl there must be very strong. She will break more crystals. But the little blonde there, she did not know that Na was that strong. She keeps saying that she would need to do a crystal test to see her strength. The old man immediately feels a very strong power coming from this girl. He even remembers that malignant power of that other white-haired girl. And even worse, he imagines that maybe she was as strong as that boy who exploded the crystal. Because of that, he starts sweating cold and even says that she does not need to take the test. The scene returns to the mansion and they were having dinner with delicious food. Lilith was the first guest of their mansion, and our hero keeps saying that this is one of the foods that he used to eat there on Earth, in the other place where he came from. All happy, she keeps saying that she will not hold back, but our hero blocks her rush, saying that first he should ask a question. He wanted to know why she was helping that priestess of the cult. He had seen her that day where they were trying to resurrect the god of fire. At that moment, Lilith, she becomes tense, imagining that maybe Naota keeps pretending to be dumb, saying that she was not there, and he must have gotten confused. Sanuhe, she says that she also saw Lil, so the girl, she already starts to cry, saying that her mother will never forgive her again. Then she screams very loudly, saying that she is not interested in other evil gods and even tries to explain herself. She says that all she wanted was for our protagonist not to stay with the mother goddess. But then girl, he says that he would like her to act as a double agent. It was for her to pretend that she was part of that cult, and thus they would be able to obtain more information. Sanuhe, she had agreed with our protagonist to put Lilith as if she were an infiltrated agent. At that moment, someone knocks on the door and our protagonist says that there are other guests. Who was outside was precisely the blonde elf and Naya, the former goddess of darkness. She was a little afraid to appear there, and when he opens the door, the elf, she becomes very happy, thanking for the invitation. Naya, she tries to hide and our protaco asks how she had the courage to come to his house. However, he ends up letting the two enter, but Naya, she was very embarrassed and even said that she would stay outside there anyway. At that moment, Evelyn the elf, she realized that Lilith was there and even asked why the succubus is there in the mansion, since it was she who kidnapped her. However, Lilith, she tells the girl to calm down and she ran to tell everything to the protagonist, saying that it was this redhead who had kidnapped her and taken her to that ritual. And the girl, she stays there without knowing what to say. Then she starts to cry, asking for forgiveness, and even says that she only collaborated with that sect because they were tarnishing the reputation of the men and she did not want the mother goddess to have a relationship with the human. Sanue, she gets with her cheeks flushed, since Lilith was very worried about her. The girl says that she is regretful and would not like to harm Sanue and even would accept any kind of punishment. But Linzoe, he says that he had already agreed to leave her as a double agent and that he had known for a long time that Lilith was participating in that evil plan. But with tears in her eyes, she keeps saying that she would like to be punished. At that moment, Sanue appears telling the girl to calm down, that she had already forgiven her, and that everything was fine, because Lilith was a girl who cared a lot about the mother goddess, and besides that was an important companion. Upon saying that, she hugs her friend very tightly, and the poor elf was not understanding anything, guys, since she did not even know that those people there were gods. But now that everyone was there, he should go to the main point. They should set up the plan to ambush the god of fire. On the next day, Lilith ends up meeting with that priestess. She was acting as if she were a double agent. She keeps saying there to the priestess that she had already misled the humans, and that now she would be able to complete the ritual fully. But of course that girl there was not believing much in that. No, but in sequence she keeps advertising about the mother goddess, and the priestess keeps listening to everything. Lilith even says that the god of fire, he is not a good person and that the mother goddess could satisfy all her desires. She still says that the other part of the power of the goddess of darkness is in the hand of the mother goddess and also of the time traveler. Then the priestess asks what the heck this girl wants. Giving a smile, Lilith says that it is something very simple. What she would like was submission. Thus they end up taking the priestess to the mother goddess, and she was there sitting on a throne. The priestess, she was surprised since Na was identical to her, and the two even stay there kind of rivaling, saying which of the two was more beautiful. At that moment Sinue, she ends up cheering. The girl there, she introduces herself to the mother goddess, saying that she is a priestess and that she was trying to resurrect the king of fire. But now Sinue and she was there to satisfy her desires and asks what the girl wanted. All this was a trap so that they could resurrect the king of fire and kill him again. Our hero together with a blonde hero, they were there in the back hidden, observing everything. The blonde keeps saying that Linzoi's wife, she had a malignant aura, and our hero he keeps giving a laugh, saying that this maybe is his impression. The blonde even asks how he managed to make the priestess go to this place, and very proud. The protagonist keeps saying that his wife she is very influential. All this was a lie, guys. The blonde. He did not know that those there were gods. He thought that they were only humans, who were followers of Eldritch gods. Even because if he said that he was married to an Eldritch goddess, the blonde there would go crazy. All motivated, the priestess says that her desire is to resurrect the king of fire. Sinue, she says that it is all right, and even shows that they had placed the elf there as sacrifice. But there was a however. Sinue keeps saying, for her desire to be fulfilled, she had to promise loyalty. She says that after they resurrect the king of fire, she should sign the contract with Naya, saying that she would be extremely loyal. The priestess says that if this is necessary to resurrect the king of fire, she accepts. She was willing to anything. Then the mother goddess tells Naya to deliver the contract, and that is exactly what Naya does. However, the contract that she had delivered was of real estate sale. Because of that, she ends up collecting it quickly, saying that she had gotten confused. And now yes, she had delivered the correct contract. The girl ends up extending her hand, placing her magic to make the signature. And now that everything was ready, they could start the ritual. They were doing this in a castle. They convinced the elf to be able to participate in all this. And upon approaching, the priestess keeps saying that all this is for the good of the Lord of Fire. The contract had already been signed and the hero wanted to invade there to defeat the girl. But our hero ends up touching his shoulder and tells the guy not to be so hasty and to wait for the right moment to act. He first would like the King of Flames to come out so he could fight against him. But the hero keeps saying that this is very dangerous, because this god of fire, he is extremely strong. When he realizes a very strong light was coming out from inside there and quickly the moon became red, Sinue herself was doing the resurrection spell, and our protagonist, he keeps giving a laugh, saying that he cannot wait to settle the score with the king of fire. The priestess, she starts to chant magical chants and thus an enormous flame begins to arise above the castle. That was working, and the priestess, she starts to call for the king of flames, and from inside the fire a creature emerges. He had a kind of earring there on the horns, and we see that the guy was a calf, or rather an ox. Even the hero, he becomes a little disappointed with the appearance, and all worried he asks Linzoi what he is going to do. Our protagonist, he was very calm, telling the hero to stay calm because he would take care of all this. The King of Flames, he approaches and asks if it is the Mother Goddess. He says that he would never imagine that he would be resurrected precisely by her, who was his immortal enemy. And all cute, she says that she resurrected him precisely for a good reason, and he will discover soon. At that moment, the priestess goes there and prostrates herself on the ground in adoration to him. But the guy, he was interested in the elf, the little blonde who was there upside down. And the priestess, she gets with her cheeks flushed, saying that she is willing to do whatever he wants, and the guy already extends his hand all shameless, saying that he wants to take her body. Remembering you that this guy here, he is extremely interested in relation between women, but the priestess, she tells him to let that elf go away and even offers her own body. However, Na keeps reminding the girl there that she had signed a contract and even shows there the paper that she signed, saying that the girl would be loyal to her. At that moment, the King of Fire realizes that the Goddess of Monsters was also there, and before the guy could pass a pickup line, our protagonist appears and even says a hello to the little calf. The guy already turns all angry, asking how this human appeared there and giving a laugh. She says that she forgot to mention to him. That is because she and Linzoi now were married. That is why he was there too. The calf, he knew this boy and was there not understanding anything how a goddess married a human. At that moment, our protagonist, he activates a portal saying that the time of the King of Fire had already ended. Thus, he ends up teleporting, telling his wife that he will return soon. Thus, the guy goes to the time room, and he had taken there the King of Flames and also Naka. She turns to Linzoi and says that his temple is getting more and more different, and the King of Flames, he already gets worried wondering why he came to stop in this place. Bringing a book, our hero mentions a fact that happened 90 million years ago. He remembers that Estia, who was the creator and founder of the church, had been killed by him. The guy keeps licking his lips saying that he remembers that girl very well. We realize that it was he, the King of Flames, who had eliminated the friend of our protagonist, that blonde who wore a blindfold on the eyes. And Linzoi even says that it was exactly because of this that he brought the little calf to his temple. In the past, Estia, she had met Nea, who was wandering the world of the humans. Quickly the two became friends and the little calf stayed watching everything. This guy was a true premium subscriber. He was very shameless and liked relationship between women. Because of that, he desired to take the body there of the little blonde to be able to stay with Nea, and he took advantage of this chance when she was alone. Linzoi, he closes the book finishing reading the story. He had brought this minotaur there back so that he would pay the price and still says that his sin is unforgivable. And pointing the finger to the calf, he asks if the guy accepts to fight again against Hestia. But the guy says that she already died a long time ago. That would be impossible. And even asks if by chance this idiot human thinks that he would be able to eliminate him. And at that moment, the guy brings his magical fire axe. And giving a laugh, this bastard keeps saying that he will eliminate Linzoe and then take the body of his wife. But giving a laugh, our protagonist says that he should not be so confident like that. No, that is because he had orchestrated this plan for a long time. He had prepared Est for many years so that she would have her revenge. Thus, he ends up bringing Hestia right there beside him, saying that that is an astral projection. He ends up materializing his spear and delivers to Estia. All cute, the girl thanks Linzoe, saying that she was anxious for this moment. She had waited for this moment for all the time that she was dead. Upon removing the blindfolds from the eyes, we see that it was of crimson color. Naya asks why Est appears so different, and our hero says that she had matured. All charming, she tells the Minotaur that his time is ending and that she will take revenge, because it was he himself who had eliminated. The guy gives us a little excuse, saying that he only would like to possess her body, and when he tries to move to an attack, a magical circle appears under the girl. Explosions begin to arise from the ground and she prepares new fire magics. It seems that the guy was not expecting such a great power coming from her, a simple human, but he keeps laughing, saying that fire does not work against him. But at that moment he realizes that he had underestimated her. The girl's firepower was not any ordinary fire. The heat that she was creating was much stronger than he could withstand. Naya keeps watching all this and wonders how a human managed such a great power. That human there in front of her was rivaling against a god. Our hero, he had prepared several humans who died to be able to avenge their deaths, and all excited he says there that his friend is about to reveal the power that he so much prepared. Right above, up high, a sun was forming, a power of which the Minotaur was not prepared. That power was basically a ball of fire with the temperature of the sun that fit in the palm of her hand, and thus she aims at the Minotaur, saying that he will be eliminated in the worst possible way, and that ball of fire ends up going in his direction, hitting his body directly. The guy begins to spit blood, and the blow was so fast that he did not even have time to react. She becomes all excited, saying that this explosion was magnificent, and thus the entire temple room ends up exploding. In sequence, she took the power of the god of fire, and in sequence, she went there to hug Linzoe, saying that all this is thanks to him. The crazy one here must not have liked it at all, right? Not even keeps saying that this boy there is a shameless fool, and even takes a photo with a magical spell, saying that she will show it to Sinuhe. Wait there, Estia, I am not managing to breathe right. The big guy asks if Sinuhe had already concluded the mission, and now that she had already managed to kill and take the power of the King of Fire, he was going to make the preparations and puts on a glove. Extending the hand, he says that it will hurt a little. Thus he begins to resurrect Hia, bringing her back to this world, and he was doing this through the power that she had obtained by defeating the King of Fire. Thus he removes all the shackles that were imprisoning her heart. Naya realized that those chains, they were placed by the very creator of the universe, and it was a curse that was in all the travelers. But now he was removing this curse completely from her. He was very serious and finally managed to break all the chains. The girl, she fell kneeling on the ground and celebrating. She tells Linzoe that it was a success. He asks if now she can remember the previous life, and looking at the stars, she begins to remember little by little and gets with the eyes full of tears. And then she remembers her home there in Japan, and also remembers her family. All this before she was summoned to this world. And I keep wondering if our hero also remembers his home, guys, since it was not mentioned if he managed or not to remove these chains from his heart. Back to the mansion, Lily asks if by chance Naya will stay a long time there in the temple of our protagonist. Sinuhe says that she is busy with a very important mission and all in love. She says that she wants to prepare a very delicious food for when her husband returns. Lily did not want to say anything, but Sinuhe's food was not very good, and we see that her food was not even appetizing. It was more looking like poison, and the priestess who had eaten stayed there feeling sick, holding a ladle. Sinuhe hopes that everyone likes her food and still keeps thoughtful if she should add some more seasoning. Then she ended up remembering something, and when she opened the door to get the ingredients, she ended up running into someone. Not someone, she ended up running into airbags, right? Avia already goes right hugging Sinuhe, saying that it is a pleasure to meet her. She even introduces herself, saying that she is a time traveler and was an old friend of Centura Linzoe. All proud, Linzoe keeps telling the two to stop with this. Then he formally introduces one to the other. He says that Sinuhe is his wife and that they usually call her Neve near the humans, so that they do not even suspect that she is a goddess. Later, the little blonde keeps saying that she will teach some things to Sinuhe. And just by looking at this face there of hers, we can already imagine what she wants to teach. She even says that it was for Linzo to stay in another room. Thus, she ends up holding the girl's hand and says that the gods, they are very naive when it comes to relationships, and even begins to explain how some things work. Little, who is a succubus, she probably knows very well what she is talking about, and even stays there with a little embarrassment. Shaking the dress, she begins to release several mangas, and you know very well what type of mangas these are. And she still says that Sinuhe has a lot to learn, and that the first lesson will not be theoretical but practical. All innocent Sinuhe asks what type of topic will be revealed today. At that moment, Estia ends up clapping, calling for Naya. The girl appears as a volunteer and immediately they bring a luxurious bed for them. All naughty, Hestia ends up thanking for the hard work of the two, and even asks for the mother goddess to lie on the bed. The girl already gets with the cheeks flushed, thinking about what she wants to show. And so as not to leave the goddess very embarrassed, she ends up calling Naya anyway and still says that they will first do a practical test. All shy and bringing her little fingers together, she says that she will write down everything, and the shameless Linzoe was already there with nerd glasses and a notebook. He even tells his wife that it would be very good for them to write everything down to learn in the smallest details. The girl, all shy, keeps saying that she does not really know what to write down, and grabbing the glasses, she says that even not understanding anything, she will give her best. And so the two stay like nerds, writing everything down. Linzoy takes advantage of every moment and even asks how his friend knows so much like that. Noticing her husband's very strong interest, Sinue asks what he found interesting, but he says that he is feeling nostalgic because it is very good to be with an old friend. At that moment, the little blonde asks if they wrote it down well and even says that now she will teach another technique. Poor Naya was just there standing serving as a guinea pig and even makes a somewhat bored face. Ada tells her to pretend that she is finding it cool, and she stays there saying, "Wow, how incredible this is." And all nerdy, our hero together with his wife write everything down. A little shy, she keeps saying that this type of thing does not seem to be something that is done in front of other people, and Lilith stays there seeing how depraved the humans are. Naya stays there very still looking like a doll, and Lilith questions how they have the courage to do this. Writing everything down, Sinuhe says that it seems to be very interesting. Meanwhile, Lilith keeps saying that she will leave because she does not tolerate this. The succubus is more Puritan than the other gods. Guys, our hero ends up showing his wife his note saying that they can test this later. The scene changes to the night. At bedtime, Lilith ends up placing herself between the two, saying that she has something very important. But the mother goddess says that she could deliver this report tomorrow very early. But the redhead keeps saying that she needs to deliver the report as fast as possible because it was urgent. All of that was just a little excuse, guys, just to get in the way of the two. However, Hestia ends up appearing there and already goes grabbing the girl, saying that she could not disturb the couple's moment. Thus, she ends up dragging Lilith out of the room. And all shy, Sinue asks her husband what they should do. Lilith keeps making a scene so that they would release her, and she even calls Hestia a shameless nun. I had forgotten that she was the creator of the church, and it is quite strange for her to know that kind of naughty thing. Keeping the door closed, she said that no one could disturb the couple, since the future of the universe depends on the child they generate, and if Lithik agreed not to interfere, she could be released. After opening the cabinet there, she realizes that Sinue only made bad food. She asks where the other ingredients were, but Lithik says that the mother goddess had used them all. Then the girl says that it is impossible to eat this crap. Lithik agrees, saying that there looks inedible. Lore even said that if she just sauteed those tentacles it would be delicious. There was no need to have added poison. Next, she ends up calling the redhead to help her. Lithith asks you if by any chance now the saint was resurrected, and she said not exactly. She explained to the little redhead that she is only alive there because of Linzoy's magic, and the redhead does not understand anything. She says she is only alive thanks to magic, and because of that all her personality, consciousness, and memory were original. She would only be able to return to the real world with her true body when all the gods were defeated, and she can only use her consciousness there because she defeated that god who had killed her. Lithith then asks if her mother goddess will also be eliminated, but the redhead pats her on the head, telling her to stay calm, because Linz truly likes Sinue, he would not harm her. Besides, it would not be necessary to defeat all the gods, eliminating them. It could be done in a non-violent way. And she even mentions that Linzoy, he spent many and many years thinking of a strategy so that this would work. Akubos even asks what strategy that is, but the saint joins her hands and says they should eat first and talk about it later. Thus she had prepared a pasta with tentacles. Lithith does not understand how she manages to cook something that looks so delicious, and with flushed cheeks, she said that her heart is beating even faster, wanting to eat this food. At that moment, Naya appears, and she was together with the priestess, and, a little embarrassed, asks if she could also eat. The priestess says that they should not even ask, since the house does not belong to Hestia, and with a smile on her face, the little blonde tells them not to worry about that, because there was enough food for all of them, and so they begin to taste the pasta, and they do this at Linzoy's door with Sinue, and they were all there curious to know what was going on. The priestess, she was with her little belly full, and even comments that the people there are very nosy. She wanted to know why they were so interested like that. Naya together with Isaiah explained that this is part of a prophecy. The child of the two would basically be the creator of the entire universe. This is because when the supreme creator disappeared and transformed into several godsrids, his power ended up being corrupted. And Sinuhe, who was the mother goddess, she would give rise to the new creator, and would only do so by having a child with a transmigrator. Naya explains that basically the war between the Eldritch was to decide who would be the father of the child. The little blonde agrees, saying that now that they have uncovered the truth behind the prophecy, more people may arise wanting to be with Sinuhe. The scene goes to the Church of the Pact. That nun, she was praying to the goddess who was the creator of the church. She wanted the goddess to bless there to be more marriages, since fewer people were willing to get married lately. And who appears there is precisely the little blonde, saying that there are few marriages because the rules are becoming very difficult. The guys also demanded a million things in order to get married, right? At that moment, the nun, she even falls to the ground and asks if that was really Lady Hestia. She even thinks that her prayer was effective in bringing her there. At that moment, the blonde asks that this little girl listen to what she has to say. Meanwhile, the hero, he was having a meeting with his superiors. The situation was very serious, because the Salvation Association was losing many members. The guy says that a new time traveler was transmigrated to this world, and this person was eliminating members of the association, and we see that this guy was a redhead, and he was called Kira, and he was already known as the Eliminator. The guy was kind of crazy, and he had barely arrived in this world, and he was already eliminating people. The guy admits, saying that before being summoned to this world, he had already eliminated many people. And he says that back on Earth he was being chased by police officers, since he committed many crimes. And while cleaning his blade there, he says that upon being transmigrated to this world, he would face it as if it were a chance to live in paradise. The soldier, he was all injured and still had to keep listening to this nonsense. With an evil look, the transmigrator, he said that he came to this world only to cause terror. but the association soldier, he said that he will not allow that. And at that moment he uses a magic, an extremely powerful burst of fire ends up hitting the transmigrator's chest. Thus the soldier ends up losing his life, using the rest of the little energy he had left. And the time traveler, he simply heals himself and even lets out a laugh. And next he hits the soldier's body, saying that that trash dared to dirty his clothes. At that moment a portal opens and a boy comes out from inside it. He asks if this guy is a new time traveler who came from Earth and even makes a joke, saying that he had made that soldier into pieces. Kira turns around and asks who that subject was. The boy says that his name is Zero, and he was also a transmigrate who came from Earth. Yeah guys, now I am no longer understanding anything. At the beginning our protagonist said that he was the last one remaining, and now another one has already appeared, who had already been there for a long time. But calm down, because all of this here will make sense. The redhead asks if he also is part of the Salvation Society, but Zero said no. In fact, he even was, but today he is not anymore. And he even says that his intention is to create a paradise, and would like to invite Kira to have fun. But for this paradise to work first they should defeat Simon and also Hestia, who was a time traveler, just like them. The scene returns to the church. Hestia had asked the nun to bring all the marriage records, and looking at the rules, she told the nun that those rules were very harsh. And while twirling the pen, she kept saying that because of that it was being difficult for Linzoy and also for Sinuhe to get married. The nun comments that those two, they must be very important people, since even she was there trying to make the rules more flexible. And the little blonde explains that Linzoy, he is the original transmigrator, and also the strongest. And Miss Sinuhe, she was the mother goddess. And of course the nun already gets frightened. She was thinking that the world was going to end, but the little blonde keeps laughing, telling her to stay calm, and even gives an idea to improve marriages, making things easier and simpler. And giving a smile Hestia, she even has an idea of creating a party hall for the married couples. But the nun, she was dying of fear, thinking that when a goddess and a human get married, there would be a great war. And she even thinks that the Church of the Pact will be to blame for all of this. The scene returns to the mansion. The hero was saying that if by any chance Linzoy was really the true and original Linzoy, he was only there pretending that the world was a game, marrying a goddess. He was even worried thinking about what goes on in his head. At that moment he ends up knocking on the door and a tentacle ends up throwing the guy far away, and we see that Sinuhe, she did not manage to reach the final step with our protagonist, and had even trapped everyone with the tentacles. Later he ends up going in to talk with the two of them. Now he was convinced that that was the true Linzoy, and even calls him sir. Our protagonist asks why only now he is believing. He becomes serious, but right after that he kneels and throws himself on the ground asking for forgiveness. But Sinuhe and she gets jealous and goes there telling the guy to move away from her husband. Next the guy recomposes himself and tells all the information that he obtained from the association. He also mentions an assassin who was Kira, who ended up being transmigrated to this world. He says that the guy is already being known as the Eliminator. At that moment, our hero stands up saying that he will take a look. His wife pulls him by the clothes and said that she would also like to go there to help him. And with a smile he said that it was all right. The scene goes to near the Forest of Barns and he had opened a portal. After coming out through the portal, Linzoy keeps saying that this must be the place. The girl, she was worried and even felt a frightening aura. As she was the mother goddess, she felt fear of this oppression. And all worried, she said that the evil aura that he had left was truly horrifying. But our big boy says that another person must have passed by there, and all curious she asks who this person would be. Using a magic, our hero, he manages to identify who had been there, and said that this person was very dangerous. His magic ends up creating a screen where he was live with that guy he was mentioning. Nive mentions that this guy looks a bit like Linzoy, and the boy welcomes our protagonist, saying that it has been quite a long time since they last saw each other. But Linzoy already ends up punching that screen and still says that he does not have time to reminisce about the old days. And with a sarcastic smile, Zero keeps saying that he also does not plan to spend much time talking. In fact, he just wanted to talk about his paradise activities, and says that his plans were not stopped, and also says that he will not let Linzoy fulfill his wish, which is to take all the time travelers back to Earth. He also says that from now on all transmigrators will be part of his paradise, and also says that he is eager to fight Linzoy again. And before leaving, Zero asks Linzoy not to die until that fight arrives. All worried, Sinuhe holds her husband's hand and asks what happened between him and that person. She would really like to help, that is why he should tell everything. The boy caresses his wife's cheek and thanks her for the concern. And with a carefree little face he says that she should not think too much about it. He decides to tell, saying that Zero was a transmigrator who ended up in this world together with him. But the guy had a very eccentric way of thinking. He saw this world as if it were a game, and the people who were transmigrated were players just like him. And the evil energy that came from the eldritch gods should be defeated as if it were the final boss. But since they could not defeat the last villain, he believed that none of them were worthy of returning to Earth. Linzoy had created the Salvation Society to be able to help in the battle against the gods, but Zero, he did not agree with that. Because of the ideology of the two, they ended up battling several times, and in all of them Linzoy had defeated Zero. Scratching his head, our protagonist says that it does not matter how many times he defeats this guy. He always appears again, and even says that this has been repeating several times. That is why they end up returning to the mansion and tell Lility that they have a big trip to make. They had said that it was a honeymoon trip, but the girl and she starts doubting it, thinking that it has something to do with what the little blonde hero had said. Then Sinuhe and she admits, saying that it is to solve a problem, leaving Lilith stunned. According to the mother goddess, she would indeed go on a honeymoon, but she would take advantage of the trip to investigate about the new exterminator, who is that guy there, Kira. The little redhead lets out a sigh, saying that she hopes the mission goes well, and even gets mad at Linzoy, saying that after they got married, the mother goddess has no time for anything else, and she even points her finger at him, saying that he should have a little more awareness. But Sinue, she keeps saying that it is good for her to know how humans live, because that would give a lot of experience. The redhead does not understand. Then Sinue, and she admits, saying that it is being very good to learn more about humans, and she did not want to just observe from afar, she wanted to experience it. Then Lilith, she agrees to take care of the mansion while the couple was on this long trip, but our hero says that this trip will last a short time, because they will return home at night, so they can sleep. Sinue, she says that when it is time to go to the place, they will go on horseback, just like normal humans do. Thus they end up mounting on top of a donkey and head towards the honeymoon, and also to investigate that new transmigrator. In the middle of the way, the girl asks if it will take a long time. Our hero says that it is not close at all, and after taking a map, he shows that they will have to cross several mountains. He also says that it would take more or less 6 months to get there, and that if they went through the magic portal, they would arrive in less than 3 seconds. Looking at the clouds, Sinue, she admits that she would like to live at least a little like humans. He caresses her head, saying that it is all right for them to travel by carriage, and they would only use magic if it were really necessary. Linzoy was holding a flyer and mentioned that this trip was important because it would be their honeymoon. When he handed it to Nave, she immediately began looking through it and was instantly captivated, since it was a travel guide for the city of Binus. Overwhelmed with excitement, she kept saying that she had never tasted human food before. The protagonist stepped closer to her and explained that the pamphlet offered more than just food. He added that it also featured an inn with hot spring baths. The girl grew shy right away, since he was standing a little too close to her. At that moment, Sinui started imagining what they could do in those hot springs, and he casually replied that yes, they could simply relax and bathe in the warm water. Her cheeks flushed as she asked what they would do after that. Naya, who was also riding in the carriage, said she felt embarrassed watching them, since that kind of couple talk wasn't meant for public settings. Still, she admitted that the idea of a honeymoon sounded pretty appealing. Taking advantage of the fact that they would pass through the great forest filled with magical beasts, Naya asked for a small favor. The scene then shifts to the grand metropolis of Binus. The executor was speaking with a doctor, saying that he wanted to be cured of his illness. It is revealed that this doctor was actually an eldritch god, known as Simon. He stated that he would only treat the red-haired man if he were given a worthy reward. Letting out a laugh, the executor said he would provide the payment immediately, since the disease he carried would kill him unless he eliminated the eldritch gods. After arriving in the capital, the girl ended up eating a lot. Nive ate so much that her stomach became noticeably swollen, almost as if she were pregnant. While hugging her husband, she said that human food was truly delicious. Raising his skewer, he asked Nive if the grilled meat really tasted that good. She happily confirmed that it was amazing, which left the vendor delighted. Right after that, he went ahead and grabbed 5 more skewers. And even though Nive had already eaten plenty, she said she still wanted to try even more. She worried about gaining weight, but the guy reassured her that she could eat as much as she wanted. At that moment, a blonde girl arrived, clearly in a bad mood. She was annoyed because her knight didn't want her eating alongside people he considered lower class, and she directed her frustration at Mars. Then she asked the protagonist what the proper way to order food at the stall was. She assumed they were experienced customers, but Nave quickly said she wasn't experienced at all. Even so, Linzoy explained that all she needed to do was sit down and choose something from the menu, since everything there tasted great. So she told her companion, the knight, to sit and eat with her. With a respectful tone, Mars thanked his lady for the invitation. However, he immediately summoned a weapon made of light, warning that if Linzoy had recommended bad food, he would personally make sure to kill him. Yeah, threatening someone over street food is wild. Sinui was shocked and asked if that man had just threatened her husband, but he calmly placed a hand on his wife's shoulder and told her to relax. The blonde girl stood up and told Mars to stop, reminding him that she had already ordered him not to threaten people. She even apologized to the protagonist and introduced herself as Vittoria. She also offered to pay for his meal. After that, she told her knight to sit down and eat peacefully with her without bothering anyone. At that moment, the skewer stall owner was trembling with fear, asking if that knight would beat him up if the young lady didn't like the food, and Mars bluntly replied that yes, if his lady wasn't satisfied, both the seller and the cook would have to deal with him. However, Linzoy reassured Mars to stay calm, saying the food there was genuinely excellent. After finishing the skewers, Linzoy stood up and said it was time for them to leave, since they needed proper rest, especially because the next day was going to be great after all. He wanted to enjoy the trip to the fullest. Once they arrived at the inn, Sinui asked if they could have a pillow fight. She even said she would invite Lilith and Na to join them. The boy didn't pay much attention and simply said that sounded like a good idea, but she suddenly stood up, pouting angrily, and asked why he was acting so distracted. He then revealed that he had actually been thinking about Vittoria and Mars. With a curious expression, Nave asked if something had happened with them. Scratching his head, he said it seemed like those two weren't truly human, and he even handed a book to his wife so she could take a look. That book turned out to be Vittoria's travel diary. The girl became intrigued and commented that the two girls shared the same name. Linzoy explains that it is because the story comes from a novel written many years ago. In that tale, a noble woman named Vittoria wanted to study medicine in the city of Binus. The reason behind her journey was to protect her knight. That knight did not live a normal life since his body was being controlled by Vittoria herself. According to the story, Vittoria developed an unhealthy obsession with Mars after his death. She refused to accept that he had passed away and left her behind. Because of that, she used magic to manipulate his body. While holding an orange, Linzoy reveals that her goal in studying medicine was to bring her beloved back to life. He asks Sinui if she knows of any eldritch god residing in that city, and she replies that it is the god Simon. That meant that once she reached Binas, she would seek out this doctor, Simon, in order to learn resurrection magic. The scene then shifts to the clinic in Binas. We see Simon running away, badly injured, while the executor chases him, declaring that he will eliminate all eldritch gods. He even says he feels disappointed, since that god turned out to be very weak. Simon admits that he is not a god suited for combat. He even shows a picture of the protagonist and his wife, saying that those two are far stronger and could be better targets for the executor. Letting out a laugh, the executor says that sounds interesting and decides to go after them instead. Right after that, he throws his blade to finish off the god. However, the blade collides with a magical portal, and we see that Simon has already recovered and managed to escape. With a sinister laugh, the executor says that this is going to be fun. But in reality, we discover that he has been trapped inside an illusion the entire time. Yeah, bro got put in a side quest he can never finish. Simon had cast an illusion on him, forcing him to endlessly hunt eldritch gods for eternity. A nurse appears and tells Simon to stop fooling around, since they have a new visitor. As he stands up, Simon replies that he is not joking at all. He even tells Mecca, his nurse, that the red-haired boy suffers from a condition where he will die if he does not hunt eldritch gods. That is why he placed him inside the illusion, leaving him trapped there. This explanation leaves the woman looking completely bored. Right after that, he goes to meet the next patient, and along the way he comments that it would actually be convenient if that executor really did kill the other gods. We then see that the one who arrived for treatment is Victoria. Mars says that he would like Simon to teach his lady the art of medicine. She makes an annoyed expression, saying that Mars always interrupts and tries to speak in her place, even lightly punching him and telling him not to act so arrogantly in front of Simon. The god remarks that it is quite unusual to receive such a beautiful visitor, while glancing at Mars, already sensing something odd. Meanwhile, the scene returns to the inn. He asks his wife if she is ready, and she replies that she is, saying she would never lose to him. The blonde girl and Lilith were also ready. After casting a spell, he declares that he will not hold back, since this is going to be a real pillow war. He uses his magic to launch all the pillows at once, hitting Lilith right in the face. With flushed cheeks, she asks the mother goddess to avenge her. At that moment, Simon begins using her tentacles, declaring that she will avenge her friend Lilith. And just like that, she easily restrains the protagonist, since tentacles happen to be his weakness. Yeah, man really has a built-in counter. Meanwhile, inside Dr. Simon's office, Mars is explaining the situation, but he finds it strange that Simon called him alone into the room. In a serious tone, the god tells them not to try hiding anything from him, even questioning why a noble girl would want to learn medical magic from an evil god. At that moment, Mars realizes that he has somehow returned to that same room again. Victoria admits that she cannot deceive Dr. Simon and proceeds to tell the entire story, explaining that the two of them grew up together but he eventually died. Since he passed away before her, she made sure he would still remain by her side. When she deactivated her magic, Mars's body collapsed onto the floor. He was only alive because she was controlling his body with her magic. However, she wants to truly revive him, and for that reason she asks if Dr. Simon can help her. Simon says that he can assist her, but he requires a reward in return, telling her to think carefully about what she is willing to offer. Meanwhile, he will attend to another patient. The scene then shifts to the great magical forest, where Sinui says that the battle from the previous night was very fun. While stretching, she asks Linzoy if they can now help Naya. He replies that yes, since they are currently passing through the very forest where she requested that favor. Suddenly they come face to face with a giant carnivorous plant. Since Sinui was quite innocent, she asked if that was the fruit they were supposed to collect. But when the creature tried to attack them, she quickly realized that it was definitely not just a fruit. After defeating the monster, Linzoy explained that the fruit they were looking for was called a watermelon. According to Naya's instructions, they needed to follow a long river in order to find them. He even mentioned that it should be somewhere near the Temple of the Myriad, at the Mother's Nest. Holding Naya's hand, he said they should jump down, and before she could even react, he leaped, dragging her along as they landed straight into the water. Yeah, no warning, just trust fall into a river. After swimming for quite a while, they eventually found a tree that grew watermelons. The scene briefly flashes back to the previous day, where they recall Naya's request. Since they would be passing through the forest of magical beasts, she had asked them to gather some watermelons. She also mentioned that this particular tree was special. They could harvest its fruits and use them as a way to gain entry into the city of Bayans. She even added that they could offer one to Simon, since she had promised to give him one. These watermelons were not ordinary. They were considered a very important type of medicine. Simon asked if all they had to do was pick the fruits and deliver them to Simon. Laughing, Naya confirmed that was correct, but warned them that it would get a little embarrassing when the time came. Back in the present, Simon asked again if they simply needed to collect the fruit. Suddenly a monstrous face appeared on the tree, saying they would first need to answer a few questions honestly. The first question the tree asked was whether there had been any saliva when they kissed. Both of them immediately answered no, and she turned bright red from embarrassment. Meanwhile, Linzoy admitted that they had not even kissed yet. Wait, they have not kissed at all. That is actually impressive at this point. The tree then declared that in order to pick a fruit, the two of them had to kiss right in front of it. The girl blushed intensely, finally understanding why Naya said it would be awkward. But instead of kissing his wife, Linzoy pulled out a chainsaw, saying he would just cut the tree down and take the fruits. Instantly the tree panicked, saying it regretted everything and begging for forgiveness. It even said they could take as many watermelons as they wanted. Well, if it gave up that easily, that definitely sounded suspicious. With an innocent tone, the tree insisted the fruits were not poisoned and were actually very tasty. Linzoi cut one of the watermelons open and noticed it was still unripe. However, the tree quickly offered other ones, claiming those were fully ripe. Sinui used her tentacles to grab one and tapped on its surface. She noticed the sound was a bit dull, and Linzoi explained that a muffled sound meant the fruit was ripe. Terrified, the tree insisted it was telling the truth and that the fruits were sweet and delicious, so they cut one open to check. They tasted it and confirmed that it was indeed very sweet. She then remembered that Naya had said Saman used these watermelons as medicine and wondered what kind of effect they had. With a mischievous tone, the tree revealed that the fruit actually helped with pregnancy, and if she failed to conceive within 6 months, her life could be at risk. Hearing that, she became both embarrassed and strangely fascinated. The scene shifts back to the metropolis of Baines. Vittoria looked visibly worried when Mecha approached her and asked what was wrong. She admitted that she was anxious about how long it would take to cure Mars. Mecha explained that Saman could heal him as early as the next day, but Vittoria wanted to perform the resurrection herself. After picking up a pair of stockings, she put them on and questioned why she had to wear white ones. Then she recalled Saman saying that anyone working at the clinic must always appear elegant. Still, she blushed and muttered that the man was actually quite shameless. Mecha agreed completely, since she was also forced to wear the same stockings. Mecha even remembered the time he measured the executor's legs because he wanted to make him wear them too. Since Vittoria would be working at the clinic to save her beloved, she first needed to understand the rules. Simon explained that the first rule was that working hours were from 9 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon, and she was not allowed to stay after that. She asked if she could remain as a patient, and Simon replied that she could, but she would have to pay for a consultation. The second rule was that she must not enter the basement without his permission, as there was a special patient there awaiting treatment. She wrote everything down on her clipboard and asked if there were any more rules. He then stated that the final rule was that if the lights ever went out, she must run away immediately. Curious, she asked why, and he told her that if she failed to escape, she would die. At that exact moment, the lights suddenly went out, leaving her alone with him. She panicked and asked where she was supposed to run, but suddenly someone grabbed her arm. It was Mars, emerging from a magical portal. He quickly pulled his lady outside. With tears in her eyes, she asked if he was all right and whether he had already been resurrected. Slightly injured, he told her not to worry about him. As she tried to understand what had just happened, Simon appeared before them, with a tentacle emerging from his body. He explains that the situation involved only a single patient who had a brief outburst, but once the medication arrived, he would calm down. Meanwhile, they were transporting a carriage loaded with watermelons. The girl looked worried and asked Linzoi if this shipment would actually work, and whether they would be able to enter the city. She also complained about an itching sensation in her stomach, which made him concerned. When he used a detection spell, he noticed that her abdomen was being influenced by a strange form of magic. As a precaution, he decided it would be best to remove it as soon as possible. At the same time, a group of bandits spotted the approaching carriage. Watermelons were a valuable commodity for resale. One of them even said he could earn enough money to pay for surgery and get rid of his tentacle arm. But then the protagonist suddenly appeared beside them, asking what kind of doctor they were planning to hire. They were completely startled and questioned how he had gotten so close so quickly. Without wasting any time, one of them immediately tried to attack him. Linzoi stated that the man's body carried traces of eldritch power, and with just a flick of his finger, he severed all the tentacles. Sinui confirmed that it was indeed a form of dark power, while the man trembled in pain. Another bandit in the back grew frightened and asked their leader what they should do to identify that magic. Asu then began casting a spell. It was a detection ability, and she wanted to trace the origin of the dark energy within the tentacle. She sensed a very strong presence of black magic, and realized it belonged to Rian, an eldritch goddess. Linzoi questioned what the dragon goddess had to do with all of this. Right after that, he cut off the other arm of the bandit and handed it to Nive so she could examine it. At that moment, she activated her analysis spell and discovered that it was linked to the ancestral god Hutos. However, those two bandits did not seem to be followers of those deities, which made the situation even more suspicious. So the protagonist said it would be easier to just ask them directly, which terrified the bandits. In a threatening tone, Linzoi demanded to know how they had obtained those cursed limbs. Shaking in fear, they explained that a doctor had performed a transplant surgery, and that many people in the city of Binds now possess those tentacles. Linzoi asked for the name of that doctor, but they said they did not know. The only thing they had heard was that this doctor was planning to create a complete king. The scene then returns to the metropolis of Binds, focusing on the door to the basement that Simon had forbidden anyone from entering. He was laughing with satisfaction, even saying he could not wait for the birth of the gods. Meanwhile, Linzoi was extremely curious about what was really going on. They already suspected that Simon was the one who had implanted those tentacles into people. From what it seemed, he was trying to seize the authority of other evil gods. Sinui commented that Simon always appeared cheerful in front of others, but he was deeply mysterious. Linzoi admitted that he had met him before, yet he had seemed so discreet that he never raised any suspicion. So he asked Neve if she knew anything more about Simon. She explained that a long time ago, Simon actually had the appearance of a woman, but later took on a male body. At that moment, Simon was in the basement speaking to a woman inside a tube, asking about the condition of the child. Placing his hand on the glass, he called out to Dr. Simon, telling her to wake up. The woman slowly opened her eyes. She coughed up liquid, and then asked how much time remained before the baby would be born. Simon replied that only a few days were left, placing his hand on her stomach. She said that as long as they could obtain the authority of Shivani, she would be able to create more gods. Yeah, that is definitely not a normal medical plan. It becomes clear that Simon is planning something extremely suspicious, although the full extent is still unknown. At that moment, the protagonist arrives at the city gates alongside his wife. The guards ask what the two of them are doing in Binds. He explains that he brought watermelons in his carriage to sell to merchants. One of the soldiers says they can enter and even mentions he will take one. However, Sunui protests, saying those watermelons are meant for selling, but the protagonist tells her not to worry, saying it is better to let them have one. He then picks up a watermelon and hands it to the guard. The man suddenly extends a tentacle-like hand, and the grotesque limb remarks that the watermelon looks delicious. Neve covers her mouth, trying to hide her shock. When they look around, they can sense multiple sources of dark energy. It seems that the entire city of Binds has already been completely contaminated. Back at the clinic, Vittoria becomes curious and decides to investigate further. Mears tells her not to do it, but she tells him to be quiet, saying that as long as they act like patients, they can move freely around the clinic. Even though Simon warned her not to enter the basement, she reasons that she could at least open the door and take a quick look. And that is exactly what she does, saying she wants to gather more information. With a clever smile, Vittoria remarks that the rule is actually quite simple. She was forbidden from entering the basement, and there was no rule against her just taking a quick peek through the doorway. When she looked down below, she witnessed a truly disturbing scene. A woman was restrained on top of a table. Mars pointed out that the woman looked strikingly similar to Dr. Simon. That was indeed the case. Could it be that he had a twin sibling? But just by observing her, it was clear that her aura was far more overwhelming. Then from the shadows, someone appeared and confirmed they were correct. The one standing there was Simon himself, who remarked they would not receive any reward for figuring that out. Holding a cup in his hand, he commented that Miss Vittoria was quite the troublesome one. He even asked if he had not already explained the rules to her. Caught within those sinister tentacles, she argued that she had not broken any rule at all. He had only said she could not enter the basement without permission, and nothing was mentioned about simply peeking through the door. However, he countered by saying that she was already inside the basement now. Without missing a beat, she replied that he was the one who dragged her in. So technically that would count as permission from the doctor himself. Since she was a patient, she added that she had the right to wander around the clinic, even pulling out a small pouch of money. Tossing the bag of coins onto the floor, she declared that this was her payment. Right after that, she politely asked Dr. Simon to release both her and Mars. At that moment, the woman on the table rose to her feet and told Dr. Simon to let them go. He agreed and even addressed her as Dr. Simon. And just like that, he lowered the two of them back onto the ground. Vittoria looked stunned and asked if that woman was the real Simon. The woman confirmed it and even complimented Vittoria for being so perceptive. Then the blonde girl began explaining her situation regarding Mars. The doctor stated that reviving her companion would be entirely possible. However, that alone was not what the blonde truly desired. She wanted the power to become an eldritch goddess and turn Mars into her familiar. Only then could she remain by his side forever, since they had promised to spend a lifetime together. Not too far from there, the protagonist commented that Binds always gave off the same unsettling vibe. Sunui grew curious and asked what he meant by that. Linzoi explained that the place was essentially a full-blown nest of evil deities. Even so, he reassured his wife Neva not to worry, since Binds had always been prone to dark disasters, and it was not their fault. Knowing that all of this was caused by Simon, Neva asked if they truly intended to deliver those watermelons to him. At that moment, the blonde hero appeared, the sword hero, stating that the corruption of the evil god had already spread to nearly everyone in the city, and he had obtained new information. According to his secret investigation, he had managed to make contact with the so-called power of the king, and it became clear that he himself was also affected by the tentacle curse. She even asked Mr. Hein, which was the hero's name, whether it was safe for him to be contaminated. Holding onto the tentacle, he admitted he could not avoid it, and ended up afflicted by the curse. He added that this curse had been brought by Dr. Simon, and vowed to put an end to this so-called king's power. But seeing that he could not even protect himself, Sunui started doubting whether he could actually accomplish anything. Yeah, confidence level not looking great. The protagonist stated that Simon alone would not have been able to spread the curse so quickly, and likely had assistance from the heavens. However, Rian was still investigating further details, so he could not confirm whether the contamination was solely caused by the malicious Simon. At that moment, they began observing the sinister entity looming before the city of Binds. The girl grew frightened and asked what on earth that thing was, and the blonde hero explained that it was the evil force possessing the entire city, and that very power had been placed there by Simon. Linsui then asked his wife if she recognized the creature in the sky, and she said she did, but what shocked her was how such a thing could even be possible. Now intrigued, Linsui urged her to explain immediately. She then revealed that the severity of the situation might go beyond anything they could imagine. At the beginning of this era, after the death of the creator, the first war among the gods took place, though back then, they were not yet eldritch gods. In those early days, the gods were benevolent and fought together against a common enemy. That enemy was the Insane Watcher, a one-eyed monster from the dark side. He was a vengeful creator, the first great eldritch god, Bermoto. The once benevolent gods knew that Bermote would eventually return in an attempt to become the new creator. Thus, all the righteous gods and Bermote clashed in a war that ultimately came to an end. However, the gods paid a heavy price, and those who survived ended up being influenced by Bermote, the dark god. As a result, they transformed into eldritch gods themselves. Some gods lost those most dear to them during the battle against Bermoto, and we see Simon in a female form holding a male body. At that time, Bermote was supposed to have been permanently banished from this world. Sunui says this, but what she never expected was that this creature would return just as it did, and now. In other words, guys, those gods who were fragments of the creator were not evil to begin with. They only turned into malevolent gods and started fighting each other because of Buramoto's influence. Linsoi starts reflecting on this, and then he suddenly leaps forward. He moves closer to that massive eye, saying he is just going to take a quick look. And of course, the girl becomes extremely worried about her husband. As he gets very close to the god Buramoto, Linsoi realizes that it still has not fully recovered. Sunui arrives up there and warns that staying near that monster is incredibly dangerous. So Linsoi ends up summoning a weapon, and immediately starts poking the creature's eye. And just like that, a massive explosion occurs. But Linsoi explains that this was not the real body, just an illusion meant to scare them. That monster was probably using Simon to gain control over the city. At least that is what Linsoi was thinking. Or maybe Simon is actually cooperating with that evil monster, since they would need to gather more power from humans to enter this world. Sunui assumes that Buramoto might not be strong enough yet. But one thing was certain, it was obsessed with this world, and all they needed was to find out why. At that moment, Simon appears, saying they could simply ask her for that information. She also mentions that as an evil goddess, she is known as the Lady of the Occult. Placing a hand on her belly, she welcomes Nemve and Linsoi to the city of Binance. Sunui asks how she returned to her old body, and why she is holding her stomach like that. It turns out she is expecting children, and she even invites them to talk at her clinic. Meanwhile, Zero is over in Egypt, or at least somewhere that looks like Egypt. Yeah, this guy really loves dramatic entrances. We already know he is a troublemaker, and his main goal is to eliminate Linsoi. To make his plan succeed, he is willing to join forces with the most wicked gods in existence, and we see that he has formed an alliance with Buramoto. At that moment, we see that god Utaos running through the desert. Then it begins to transform, until it becomes clear that it is actually a girl. She needs to head to Boines immediately. That is because she wants to meet Sunui, or rather Nive. Remember, she is using that name as a disguise among humans. Meanwhile, back at Simon's clinic, she is serving tea to the two of them. Linsoi grows curious and tells her to just reveal everything she knows already. She says she can explain, but first she wants to ask a question. First, she wants to know if the two of them have already done that. Sunui immediately understands what that means and lies, saying they have, since they have been married for quite a while. She even pats her husband on the back, telling him to agree. However, he is sweating nervously, knowing that Simon already sees through him. With a laugh, she says that just by looking at his face, it is obvious he is suffering, because it is very hard to fake symptoms in front of a doctor. She even comments that it must be extremely painful for Linsoi to stay close to Sunui, and even worse, it must be unbearable to remain near two eldritch gods. Yeah, bro is not having a good time. She leans closer to Linsoi, saying his little heart must be racing. And of course, Niv gets extremely jealous. At that moment, he firmly grabs Simon's hand and says that even as an evil goddess, she should have honor and help keep someone's secret. The girl winces in pain and says she cannot hide something like that from his own wife. The doctor then reveals that Linsoi is cursed, and Niven immediately asks what kind of curse it is. But the boy gently pats his wife's head and tells her not to worry, saying he will handle it himself. Then Simon reveals everything, saying they will never be able to have children because Linsoi carries the curse of a traveler. This curse causes his heart to ache whenever he is near gods like Zeld's, and the closer he gets, the stronger the pain becomes. That is why they have not done anything yet, guys. He was not stalling at all. She even explains that to fulfill the prophecy, he would need to have a child with Sunui, but because of this curse it is impossible. She adds that if he forces himself to stay too close to her for too long, his heart will eventually explode. Hearing this, Niven feels deeply saddened and asks why he never told her before. She feels terrible for causing him pain just by being near him, and asks what she can do to help. Linsoi apologizes to his wife, and she lightly taps him, saying she will forgive him this one time, but he should never hide anything from her again. Simon then asks if they are really not going to argue anymore and why they made up so quickly. Must be love, huh? At that moment, Nurse Mecha arrives and says that a new patient has come in. The doctor asks if the other doctor Simon can handle it, but the nurse says no, because the other doctor has already died. She was completely startled. What do you mean he is already dead? Meanwhile, we see that other eldritch goddess, Utas, with her mouth wide open. Yeah, that is not a good sign. And just like that, she begins devouring a body. And the body she had just consumed was actually Simon's. She even comments that her energy has already been restored. Mars steps in front of Vittoria and declares that he will protect his lady. But Utaos casually says that those two humans barely have any energy, so she does not even bother eating them. Savage, honestly. Simon then arrives at the scene and asks Utaos what exactly she has been doing. At that moment, Utaos's eyes begin to glow, and she explains that she devoured that other Simon to recover her strength. She even asks for another clone to eat, but Simon grabs her cheeks and instead serves her normal food. After they finish eating, they can talk about the situation she is in, since she first needs to deal with that overly affectionate couple. We see that Neves is deeply in love with our hero, and this leaves Simon feeling extremely embarrassed, since being around such a lovey-dovey couple is just awkward. Only those who have experienced it know how uncomfortable it feels. Everyone there is feeling secondhand embarrassment from the situation. Neva also shows up, saying that they should eat first and talk afterward. She even asks the male Simon to bring her another bowl of soup. The female Simon complains that Naya should not just walk in and treat everyone like her staff. Naya admits that she is no longer an evil goddess. However, she says she can still help resolve the situation, but but Simon argues that with Naya's help, things would only get worse. Outside, Vittoria notices that there is a meeting of evil gods happening, and even wants to join, since her wish is to become a goddess as well. The scene then shifts to later. Down in the hospital's underground area, Simon is there with Linzoy and the other gods, saying they need to organize themselves before sharing information. Simon explains that this monster is connected to multiple events happening around the world. That is why she has been aware of Baramot's existence for quite some time. She knew that sooner or later it would return. Because of that, she began preparing in advance and started creating numerous clones to form the perfect evil god. That is why she arrived in the city of Butaus before him, and began spreading contamination among the people there. Soon after, strange patients coming from paradise started appearing. Remember, they call paradise the place our protagonist came from, which is Earth. It is basically like a parallel universe. Simon asks if Utaus was also attacked by those people from paradise. Utaus says yes, and explains that those people are extremely powerful, and even an eldritch god would struggle to defeat them. Naya comments that they must indeed be strong if they manage to attack an evil god. Our protagonist explains that people from that paradise usually attack first, then try to infiltrate and launch a second wave. Classic strategy, honestly. But Simon reassures him that there is no need to worry, because once she noticed the problem, she made sure to protect the clinic. So now it is clear that she was not behind Baramot, guys, it was actually Zero. Plot twist, but not really. Vittoria asks Mars if he heard what they were discussing in the underground area. Mars confidently says that those gods are weak and that his lady is far more powerful than them. She pouts and calls him a liar, saying she does not want to hear such flattery. However, he insists that he is telling the truth. At that moment, Zero appears right in front of them, saying he could help. Mars immediately draws his energy blade and asks who that boy is. He replies that he is someone who can offer assistance. However, he wants them to do him a small favor first. If they help him, he will turn her into an evil goddess. But the girl says she does not trust him, so he tells her that she can trust him, because he already did something like that in the corridor. The girl is immediately shocked, placing her hand over her face. Holding a photograph, he explains that her friend went to Dr. Simon's office for treatment but never returned. So all she has to do is find him inside the office and strike him with that blade. If she does that, her wish to become an eldritch goddess will come true. Holding both the blade and the photo, she says she understands, and with a smile, Zero says he will be waiting for her actions. The scene then returns to the clinic where we see that she has told everything to Simon. Simon takes the blade and asks if Vittoria knows that man, but she says she does not. Looking at the blade, he realizes it is not strong enough to eliminate that patient, so the man must be planning something else. With her head lowered, she agrees and says she does not really understand that man's intentions. Then Simon hands the blade back and tells her to do whatever she thinks is best. She asks if he is serious, if she can really strike the executor, the red-haired guy, with that blade. Simon agrees, saying she can do it, since they need to figure out what their plan is. However, Vittoria does not have the courage and asks Mars to do it instead. And if things go wrong, he can just run away. Simon states that everyone there is on her side, and if things get critical, they will step in to help. Hearing that, Mars declares that he will go ahead and carry out the mission. He approaches the red-haired man and readies his blade. And in that exact moment, the entire clinic suddenly explodes. Looks like that was Zero's plan all along. Naturally, Simon is filled with regret, since her clinic has been destroyed, and she starts complaining, saying that that jerk made sure to wipe everything out. She even mentions that she bought that place after saving money for a very long time. Meanwhile, Naya is in the background laughing it off, because she knows very well what it means to work for a living. Linzoy tells her not to worry about material things, since she can always buy another one. Then, pointing at the executor, he says that guy is about to cause serious trouble. Enraged, the man demands to know how the eldritch gods dared to deceive him. Mars tells Lady Vittoria that it is dangerous there, so they should retreat. Meanwhile, Simon argues that they did not deceive anyone, especially since he never even paid the consultation fee, and when dealing with troublesome patients, they use more drastic treatment methods. She tells Utaus that she has some unfinished experiments in her secret lab, and if the opportunity arises, she should help deal with them. But for now, she needs to handle this patient. With that, the gods leap into action, and Utaus says she will assist her sister behind the scenes, then asks what they plan to do. She is referring to Navi, but Zero suddenly appears, provoking them and saying that Navi is not going anywhere. At that moment, Utaus shifts back into her humanoid form. She seems happy to see Zero again, while he smirks and says that the little mummy has run into him once more. However, he apologizes for failing to eliminate her the last time. Madame Utaus's expression instantly changes as she says she does not want to die. Mattia steps in, pointing out that he is at a numerical disadvantage, and even if his power rivals Linzoy's, he cannot defeat all three of them together. He admits that she is right. The numbers are not in his favor. However, time is on his side, and he reveals a magical hourglass. Then he declares that he will return things to the beginning, and in that instant, both Sinui and Linzoy are turned into children and sent somewhere else. Our protagonist explains that this is a special space created by Lin's ability. Ling possesses the power to record history and insert fragments of it into different moments. She asks how he managed to record a moment from when they were children, and our king cannot answer that question. What concerns him now is how much power they still have in these childlike forms. He tries to cast a very powerful spell, but only manages to produce a small flame in his hand. After focusing, Sinui says she can only use enhancement magic. So yeah guys, they are in serious trouble, and to make things worse, a massive monster appears. They are trapped inside that magical hourglass. That is what Zero says. Nadia claims that it is not a problem at all. All she needs to do is hold Zero off for a while so that Linzoy and Sinui can escape from inside. But Zero knows that Nadia has lost her Eldritch Goddess powers, and he quickly strikes her from behind. Laughing, he says she will never be able to stop him, and she collapses defeated on the ground. Because of this, Utaus becomes furious and grows in size. She tries to crush Zero, but he leaps high into the air. Mars asks Vittoria if they should intervene, but she says they do not have enough strength to help in the fight, and if she makes the wrong choice, she could put both of them in danger. Changing his expression, he says he owes her nothing, and at that moment he declares that she is going to die. He attempts to strike his lady, but she steps back, asking what he is doing. Frightened, she asks who he really is, and he reveals that he is the real Mars. At that moment, Simon emerges from one of the portals. If they fight in the upper part of the city, they will not have to worry about harming civilians. Simon says she does not need the doctor's help to deal with this guy, since she defeated him alone last time. But the executor says he will not fall for the same trick twice, and by opening a portal he summons an ally, and that ally turns out to be Nurse Mecha. Simon asks why the nurse lured her there, and kneeling respectfully she apologizes to the doctor. Simon wonders if it is because of the white stockings she forced her to wear, but the woman says no, and even admits she actually liked them. She simply reveals that she is a member of Paradise. Then she pulls out a massive syringe and charges straight at Simon. Yeah, definitely not a routine checkup. The executor starts licking his blade, while from a distance Hein watches everything and says it is exactly as Lord Yugal had described. The Order of Heroes is there to try to stop the Battle of the Gods. Meanwhile, inside the hourglass, our hero is struggling to survive. He asks Nive whether she can actually use her power, and with confidence she tells Linzoy to leave it to her. With her fist clenched, she activates a strengthening spell and delivers an incredibly powerful strike. That hit is so strong, guys, that it completely destroys the monster. And just like that, it gets blasted far away. Full of pride, she says the problem is solved, and he asks, what kind of enhancement magic is that? She replies that she only boosted her power a little. Clapping his hands, he realizes just how strong his wife truly is. She asks if they are going to leave now, but the boy says there is no need to rush, since they can make use of this place. They are in a location where time does not exist, but Sinui looks completely confused. That means even if they spent 10,000 years here, no time would pass outside. This is also the place where Zero stores the fragments he has collected, so from here they can travel back into the past. Zero comments that Utaus is being overly cautious, but the mummy girl argues that she is fighting carefully because her opponent is very quick at hiding. She is also being careful not to step on people, and with a flame in his hand he says he does not care about innocent lives, but Utaus gets extremely angry and declares that she will not tolerate that. The hero asks Lord Yugal why he has not appeared yet. Inside the hourglass, our protagonist picks up a time machine, and it turns out to be nothing more than a desk. Yeah, totally normal time travel device. Sinui cannot understand how that thing is supposed to send them through time, and he explains that it is simply a device capable of opening spatial portals. By entering the drawer, they can access a time paradox. He even remarks that, as expected, getting there was quite easy. They return to their original forms, and she loses her balance, falling on top of him. But at the last second, the guy manages to catch his wife, and Linzoy definitely came out winning in this situation, guys. Of course, she gets flustered and starts talking quickly to change the subject. She asks how exactly they are going to travel through time and why they would even do it, and he says there is a very reasonable reason for it. He wants to remove the curse from his heart so they can finally have a child together. He explains that he will travel through Nefi's past timeline to discover why the creator split into fragments and turned them into evil gods. Holding her hand, he says that once they uncover the truth and solve this issue, they will be able to live happily ever after. But she becomes sad, saying that the Linzoy from the past would not recognize her, yet he replies that his past self will probably like her, since the present version already does. And if she manages to discover the cause of his curse, they will finally be able to have a child. The girl becomes extremely shy because he said that twice in a row. Laughing, he hugs his wife and says he hopes she can resolve this as soon as possible. Yeah guys, it seems our boy is really looking forward to, well, you already know. Meanwhile, we see Naya badly injured, complaining that this body is far too weak. Someone appears and asks if she has finally woken up. She says that Zero managed to escape with Linzoy and Niven inside the hourglass. When at the same time we see that our dear Niven has arrived in our hero's world. She looks completely human now, without horns, and she is fascinated because this is her husband's timeline. He is still in high school, so she heads over to the school. Disguising herself as a student, she says that she has finally found him. He is sitting there on the rooftop reading a book, while she tries to act as sweet and charming as possible. She calls out to Linzoy, but our guy barely pays her any attention. She smiles at him with an adorable expression, trying to make him fall for her, but the boy simply covers his face with the book, and she gets annoyed, saying he should not ignore her. With a bored tone, he tells her not to bother him because he was sleeping. If you notice, the cover of the book he was reading actually had Sinui on it. She gets irritated. She says this is frustrating, since he does not even know her yet. So the girl decides to try seducing him, and asks if he wants to do something together. When he turns away, she says she will tell him a secret. In truth, she is his future wife. The boy simply stands up from his chair with a bored expression, while she lets out a small laugh. However, another girl suddenly appears, telling Nivid to wait a moment. She says she arrived first, and that Linzoy belongs to her. Wait, what is going on here? Linzoy explains that other girls also claim they will be his future wife, so he is already used to being chased like this. The blonde girl says she has known Linzoy for 5 years, and that he promised she would become his wife. Meanwhile, the black-haired girl says she has known him since childhood, for over 10 years, and that she will definitely be his wife. And it is not just them guys, there are even more girls claiming they will marry him. The guy even has a fan club, and Nivid realizes that winning his heart is going to be very difficult. The girls tell Nivid she can join the fan club too, since the line is already pretty long. The boy says he is not interested in those girls, and even turns his back on them. He does not like easy women, so he quickly says his goodbye. Not only is he popular, but he has attitude too. However, Nivis suddenly uses her tentacle powers. The guy is shocked and asks what that is, and she says he has no choice but to be with her, whether he wants to or not. The other girls start wondering what those strange tentacles even are. The blonde even starts wondering if she might be dreaming. Meanwhile, Linzoy is in Niva's past timeline. He places a hand on his head, questioning why his memory feels a bit scrambled. At that moment, a goddess in the distance asks if the boy is feeling sick. He replies that he is fine and thanks Lord Rudin for the concern. She explains that the Council of Gods deliberately invited many humans. To ensure their well-being, she was assigned to supervise them. He says they are almost there, and that this grand event will determine the world's fate for millennia. The girl agrees with him, and at that moment, the past version of Sanui appears, asking Ri if there is still any ham on the ship. And just like that, our hero ends up seeing his wife. With an innocent expression, she asks why that human is there. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the girl goes into our hero's room and starts going through his phone. She is trying to learn about that world and ends up discovering the full truth. But then she stumbles upon hentai videos, and he quickly tells her to stop watching that kind of stuff on his phone, while she insists she was just curious. She notices he is still tied up, and immediately extends her tentacles. After freeing him, she comments that his world feels very restrictive, while he responds that she is the strange one here. At that moment, he asks if she really is his future wife, and she confirms it, saying that he was the one who proposed to her. He realizes that his future self will probably travel to another world. She confirms that is correct and adds that he will become immortal. However, he will also gain an eternal curse. And that is why she came back to the past, to find out how he got that curse. She needs to break it no matter what. But the guy suddenly yawns. He even believes what she said, but he wants to know how they are supposed to figure out how to break the curse. With a cute expression, she admits that she does not know. The only thing future Linzoy told her was to go back to the past and find out. At that moment, a portal opens, and she grabs a pillow, announcing that she will be living with him from now on. And just like that, she says goodnight, and tries to sleep, but the guy tells her she needs to do something first. She asks if it is about eating, since she is very hungry, and he says no, it is not about food. First, she needs to deal with those two girls. And we see that Sanui has tied up those girls who claim they would marry our protagonist. The blonde even complains that her head is about to explode since she is hanging upside down. At that moment, Linzoy's mother arrives home, and she ends up hearing two girls screaming. It even sounds like he is doing something very questionable to them. Yeah, this looks terrible out of context. You already know what that implies. His mother is completely shocked. Later, he tries to explain things to his mother and ends up telling a small lie, but his mother becomes happy, saying her son has grown up too fast. No mom, it is not what you think, I swear. With a gentle smile, Sanui assures his mother that she will be careful not to get pregnant, and the guy immediately gets annoyed, telling her not to make things worse. After that, once his mother leaves, he sends the two girls outside. He even tells them to keep everything a secret. Meanwhile, in the main timeline, Simon is fighting against her own employee. Mecca admits that her doctor is very powerful, and Simon asks if she truly came from paradise, since she seems like she belongs to this world. Meanwhile, the other Simon is asking for help, because his fight is becoming quite difficult. The doctor even complains that Simon is slowing down her mission, since he keeps asking for assistance. Then the nurse reveals that she is the most devoted follower of the creator, and her goal is to bring the former master back. And since Simon wants to create a new creator, she must be stopped, as that is considered a grave act of blasphemy. The doctor asks if that is really the reason, since it sounds quite foolish. At that moment, the woman begins transforming, and even asks if Dr. Simon likes her beautiful body. She declares that she will use her powers to stop Master Simon and build an ideal world. We are shown this girl's past, where she is inside a church offering a prayer. Her little sister complains that she is hungry, so she gently pats her sister's head and says that once they finish praying, she will buy some bread. But someone suddenly appears there and asks if the two of them are followers of the creator. Mecca says yes and explains that she came to the church to pray. The man removes his hat and says that he also came to pray, but not to the creator, and then he pulls out a weapon. He reveals that he came to pray to the evil god Senro. Simon. Back in the present, we see the woman managing to pierce through the doctor's body. She declares that she has finally completed her mission, which was to take revenge. But in reality, that is not what happened, since both Simons are completely fine. They had trapped Mecca in an illusion, and she ended up striking the executor instead. The doctor asks Simon if he managed to see the visions from her memories. He says yes and explains that the man had killed Mecca's sister and was one of the church's fanatics. Simon even laments, saying that such fanatics end up tarnishing the reputation of the gods, and adds that being an eldritch god is actually quite a sad existence. Meanwhile, Mars declares that only he has the right to become an evil god. Victoria cannot understand why Mars is attacking her, but she realizes that his strikes are meant to kill her. He says she must be wondering why he is disobeying her orders, and according to Mars that can only mean one thing. In truth, he was never dead. He was merely in a deep slumber. The girl closes her eyes as the attack comes straight at her. However, someone suddenly appears to save her, and it is none other than our boy Hein. With full confidence, he tells the young lady not to worry, because he is a holy knight. She warns him to be careful, since Mars is extremely powerful. The knight charges toward his opponent, but Hein calmly states that his sword can cut through anything, and without much effort, he slices through Mars's blade, even telling him to give up because he has no chance of winning. Clean cut, literally. Meanwhile, in another timeline, our protagonist from the past starts feeling something very unsettling. The teacher announces that she has some news for the class. Today they have received a new transfer student, and it turns out to be Nivi. She introduces our dear heroine, saying that her name is Sinui, and the guy almost spits in disbelief, saying, "There is no way she would go this far just to become my classmate." With an adorable smile, she introduces herself as Sinui, and she says she transferred from Japan. She even reveals that she is Linzoi's fiancé, leaving the guy completely shaken. His classmates start complaining, asking why all the beautiful girls are connected to him. One of them even says he is insanely jealous of Linzoi, and plans to beat him up after school. However, Sinui steps in and asks how he dares to threaten her fiancé. The teacher, trying to smooth things over, says that Sinui can sit next to her fiancé since there is an empty desk, and she realizes this is the perfect chance to stay close to the one she loves. The boy asks if this eldritch goddess has no sense of shame, and she replies that she does not, even saying that he has to go out with her during lunch break. But he refuses, saying there is no need, since he has to study and cannot waste time on this whole time travel nonsense. But she insists that she will use the break to go buy a swimsuit for swimming lessons. With a suspicious look, he asks if she wants his help choosing the swimsuit. She says yes and even asks with curiosity if he would not like that, telling him to imagine her trying on outfits in front of him, and the shameless guy instantly blushes, saying he definitely wants to go with her. The teacher tells Linzoi to be quiet since he is speaking too loudly, and even asks what he was talking about, and he quickly plays it off, saying it was nothing. After that, they head to the bus stop, and he complains that it is way too hot. That is because the other girls came along and are clinging to him non-stop. The black-haired girl says they cannot let Linzoi go out with that new girl, because she will make him fall in love. With a tired expression, our protagonist says those girls are way too clingy. Pointing at him, they declare that they will not allow him to be alone with that girl, because she is dangerous. They even start imagining that after buying the swimsuit, he will be taken somewhere a bit more heated. Yeah, their imagination is working overtime. They keep saying that Linzoi is going to fall under her spell. With a mischievous smile, she says that she and Linzoi have already gone much further than that. But the blonde refuses to believe it and says she will beat the newcomer by picking the best swimsuit. Our guy says they can try whatever tactics they want, but he will not fall for their tricks. However, at that exact moment, he suddenly experiences a vision, guys. And in that vision, the two girls are badly injured. Sinui, clearly worried, asks Linzoi what he is feeling. And when the vision fades, he sees the two girls arguing over who gets to stay with him. However, he tells Sinui that it is nothing, and that he is fine. Even so, he had just seen something very disturbing, and starts wondering what that was. At that same moment, in the other timeline, present-day Linzoi comments that he also feels some kind of memory interference. He even wonders if Niviv has already figured out the cause of his curse. At that moment, he arrives at a special place and opens a door. When he enters, a girl sitting at a desk asks the time traveler why he has come. He is standing before the great creator, guys, the supreme goddess who created the entire universe and summoned the time travelers. Wearing a hood, she says she already knows exactly why he is there. And the guy is immediately shocked, asking, "What do you mean you already know?" And at that moment, we see that the creator goddess is actually Lilith. At this point in the story, my brain is already melting. Guys, she makes a sad expression and says she did not like that Sinui left her to stay with the young master. He becomes suspicious and asks if the creator god is truly Lilith, since she seems more mature than before. He even finds it strange, because if Lilith is the creator goddess, then it feels odd, since she was never someone respectable, and the Lilith he knew would constantly insult him. Meanwhile, the creator in front of him seems much more normal, so to speak. In a cute manner, she says that since Lilith has already seen through her, there is no point in keeping up that fake personality anymore. But right after that, she changes her appearance and transforms into the blonde hero. Our protagonist points out that he forgot to switch bodies, and at that moment, the creator god casually admits that he really did forget. And we see that the body is Lilith's, but the head belongs to Hein. Yeah, that combo is cursed. At that moment, Saiman enters the creator's chamber. She explains that as Lilith can see, the creator has fallen into an endless state of confusion, a complete madness. Lilith already suspected that the creator was going through something like that, but he did not imagine it was this severe. It is precisely because of this madness of the creator god that the world has fallen into chaos. So that does not necessarily mean that Lilith herself is the creator goddess, guys. At least that is what it looks like, since the being there is so unstable that it can take on any form. Even Saiman mentions that the creator goddess has the ability to become anyone. However, she has become so insane that she can no longer tell who she truly is. Simon then invites Lilith to talk outside, so they head over to a garden. Lilith Zoe says he is going to be completely straightforward with Dr. Simon. Keep in mind, guys, they have no knowledge about time travelers. They only know about people coming from what they call paradise, but they do not realize those individuals can become incredibly powerful. So he reveals to the past version of Simon that he is a time traveler, and that an enemy, the evil god Buramoto, will return and bring destruction. The woman is shocked, and he explains that the main reason this monster will start a war is because the creator god has fallen. She is stunned and asks how he knows all of this. He says it is because he came from the future, and everything he is saying has already happened. She even thinks he sounds a bit foolish for saying something so absurd, but because Lilith Soy speaks with confidence and possesses great power, it becomes easier for her to believe him. Back in the present, we see that Utas and Naya are both injured, and Simon arrives at the scene. Naya starts complaining, telling Simon to stop talking nonsense and help already. They had lost the battle, and Utas asks her to heal Naya first. Simon even reveals that she defeated the Executor quite easily and asks where Zero has gone. We then see that he did not run away at all, and instead returns, saying that Simon's illusions do not work on him. She asks if he fabricated that lie about the creator being trapped in paradise and used it to deceive Mecha. With a smile, he asks how she can be so sure that it is a lie. She responds that she knows it is false because it would be impossible for it to be true. After all, the one who sealed the creator back then was her. Back at the pool shop on Earth, we see the blonde trying on swimsuits, but our protagonist gives her a score of 6. The black-haired girl tries on a more alluring swimsuit, but our hero says it looks too forced and gives her a score of 5.5. Savage judge. Then Nivis shows up, saying that the swimming class will happen soon, and that she would like his help. With a charming expression, she says she does not only want help choosing the outfit, but also wants him to teach her how to swim. Adjusting her hair, she asks if he likes the swimsuit she is wearing. The shameless guy starts sweating and gives her a perfect 10, saying she looks amazing. Leaning closer, she asks if he can teach her how to swim. Blushing, he asks if this mischievous goddess really does not know how to swim. With a trembling voice, she says she actually knows how, but still wants dear Lilith Toy to teach her anyway. The other girls suddenly show up and ruin the mood, saying they will teach her themselves and dragging the newcomer away. At that moment, he feels something strange again. It is that same vision of the girls lying there, badly injured. And the one holding a blade in that scene is none other than him. He even asks himself why he keeps seeing these visions. After pulling the newcomer away, they run back to him, asking if he wants to teach them how to swim. At that moment, Sanui realizes that he might have already noticed something. Everyone still believes that our protagonist and Sanui are trapped inside the hourglass. Simon asks Zero if he really thinks he stands a chance against the creator. He admits that it will indeed be a serious problem. However, according to him, what is trapped there is probably only the body, not the soul. Simon asks if he wants to test that theory. Holding the hourglass, he says there is still some time left, so there is no harm in trying. Meanwhile, we see that Mars has been captured. Hiran says it is useless while the man complains, and the blonde girl thanks him. However, he also decides to arrest Vittoria and asks if she will put on the handcuffs herself, or if he should force them on her. The girl is completely confused and asks why she also has to be arrested. According to him, it is because she and Mars do not truly exist in this world. They are merely characters from a story. The girl gets angry and says that is absurd, because she definitely exists. He restrains her and explains that someone with immense power brought her, a character from a story, into the real world, and until they uncover the full truth, the Salvation Society must detain her. He uses a magic spell to contact Jaeger, telling him that his mission has already been completed. Back in Lilido's past timeline, he is still talking with Simon, and he comments that the creator's situation must be extremely difficult. Simon replies that the arrival of a time traveler only makes everything even more complicated. She even wonders if that means the creator's fate was already sealed. He explains that in the future, the creator will disappear and summon heroes from another dimension to save the world, especially since the fallen gods ended up becoming corrupted, and he even says that, in his opinion, she and the others have already turned into evil gods. She responds that the creator goddess is the foundation of everything, and if she has gone insane, then the lesser gods like them would inevitably become corrupted as well. With a saddened expression, she asks, who could possibly be capable of attacking the creator god? The guy scratches his head and says that maybe it was him, and of course, she was completely shocked. In fact, what he wanted most was to prevent travelers from being summoned to other worlds. And perhaps he attacked the creator, because it was precisely she who summoned the humans from Earth to this fantasy world. So, the only way he could imagine stopping that was by trying to defeat the creator. The problem was that he did not know the creator had become completely insane. Meanwhile, back on planet Earth, Linzoy was in the pool together with Niv. It was very strange that this girl had appeared out of nowhere and said that she would marry him in the future. However, she was very beautiful, and the big guy was gradually starting to fall for her, because it would be very difficult to resist a waifu like that. He asked the mother goddess if she knew anything about the vision he had seen, and making an adorable face, she asked why he was only seeking her help now. He wanted to know what was happening and why he was having these illusions. The girl then stood up and said that she would help Linzoy see the whole truth. As she approached him, she asked if he was prepared for his world to be turned upside down. At that moment, he began to feel intense pain, and his mind was teleported to a completely ruined world with a gigantic tree. He asked what that was, and why the city was in complete ruins. Senui then revealed that in 3 days this world would enter a global apocalypse. She pointed at that tree and said that it was an extremely supreme evil god that had destroyed all of humanity. And she even said that in the future he would become a time traveler to stop that evil god. She said that she came from that future, where he would marry her, and the reason she had returned to the past was to discover who had cast the curse on him, because they could only save the world if they had a child. but because he was cursed, he could not get close to her. And she also said that she could not wait to send him back to his true home, so that they could live a happy life together. After that, Sinui stopped that illusion magic. They returned to the pool. Still somewhat doubtful, Linzoi asked if it was true that the world would end in 3 days. At that moment, those 2 girls who were in love with him appeared and even said that that white-haired brat was hugging Linzoi. Meanwhile, in the timeline of our protagonist, the true timeline, he felt as if the memories from Sinui's other timeline were collapsing. He also remembered his friend, that blonde saint girl, saying that he would need to find a way to bring all of them back home. He needed to uncover the mystery of who had placed that curse on his heart, the one that prevented him from getting close to the gods. So he told Seiman that he had an idea for solving the whole problem. But for that he would need Niv help. The truth is that Niv still did not really know him yet, guys. So they ended up going down to the lower deck of the ship. Niv was eating a delicious meal. Seiman said that she needed to introduce someone to her, and full of curiosity, Niv asked who it was. At that instant, Linzoi appeared and introduced himself to the mother goddess Nive. Sinui asked who he was. Then she remembered that she had already seen him the previous day when he was near the ship. But the big guy said that he had known the goddess for much longer than just since yesterday. As he approached her, he said that he was a time traveler and that he had come from the future. In a very respectful manner, he said that he was married to the mother goddess, Sinui. She could not understand anything. And feeling extremely embarrassed, she put her hand over her mouth and asked, "Were we really married?" And even scratched his head and said that it was probably true, that he was not lying. Then he revealed that he wanted Niv's help with something, and with a confused expression, the girl said that she did not understand anything. And with a smile, he said that she did not need to worry, because he would explain everything properly. After he talked to her, the girl would end up forgetting everything because he would return to his own timeline. He explained everything, guys, saying that he had been sent to this world, that he came from Earth, that he had a curse, that he could not get close to her, and everything else. Meanwhile, in Sinui's timeline, where she had traveled back to the past on planet Earth, she was also trying to convince Linzoi to discover the reason behind that curse. She asked if he had really believed her, because he seemed very calm about the whole situation. At that moment, he offered her a cute little can of soda. She thanked him, saying that he was very kind. At that moment, he asked whether there was no other way to save her world. But the girl said that unfortunately the apocalypse was unavoidable. The author was really inspired on this day, huh guys? She hugged the big guy, and he became very shy, and she said that the only way they could save the world was by having a child. And while whispering in Linzoi's ear, she said that this was the only reason she had come to Earth. Yeah, it looks like this boy is going to get lucky, huh guys? Meanwhile, back in Linzoi's dimension, they were preparing for a surgery. Simon put on the gloves and picked up a scalpel, and then she asked Linzoi if he was sure that this plan would work. He said yes, and even mentioned that Nive would be handling the anesthesia. And we see that she was holding a giant gun, giving a thumbs up. He said that the equipment was primitive, but that anesthesia would do the job. What they had done, guys, was chain up the mother goddess, and she remained there begging for help. The creator goddess had gone insane and kept transforming her body into several different people. Linzoi managed to convince Simon to perform a kind of surgery to somehow separate the spiritual part of the creator goddess's body. Simon herself was thinking that maybe it would not work, but it would be better to trust this boy than keep risking the future of the entire galaxy. Holding the scalpel, he said that he did not have much experience with this, so he immediately grabbed a chainsaw instead, saying that this equipment was much more suitable, and thus they performed the surgery in a very unconventional way. After a few hours, he wiped the sweat from his forehead, saying that he had finally finished. And then the two celebrated, saying that the surgery had been a success. Simon rang a little bell, saying that this had basically been an exorcism. Nive said that even though she did not really understand what they were doing, she completely trusted Mr. Linzoi. Our protagonist was holding some parts of the creator's body and asked Simon what that meant. She explained that what he was holding was the main part that had been removed from the creator's body. Then Linzoi asked if she could take care of that main part, catching the doctor by surprise. He said that it was because in the future she had always kept the creator's body close to her, which was why he trusted her. Of course, the girl felt somewhat awkward, since taking care of the creator's body would be a huge responsibility. But at that moment, the dragon goddess arrived there, catching them by surprise. They immediately did not know how to react. And then the dragon goddess saw Mother Creator lying on the stretcher covered in blood. She told Rui Jin that she could explain everything that was happening. But of course, the dragon goddess became extremely furious, and said that there was nothing she could explain. And she even accused the group of trying to eliminate the creator goddess. She then stretched out her hand and said that they should pay 500,000 gold coins so that she could forget all about it. Remembering that she is a dragon, and dragons love gold. Next, we see that she had been captured, and it seemed that she was enjoying being tied to that chair, guys. Linzoi said that he was actually going to use her power to accomplish his goals. And he even said that it was to save the entire universe. He said that the goddess of dragons possesses a power that surpasses all the other gods. And as he extended the goblet, a black liquid began to emerge from inside it, and Rugen started screaming, calling that goblet her child. The other two goddesses in the background mocked her, saying that Ryan treats gold as if it were her own children. Here, every god is stranger than the last. At this moment, a very strange scene takes place, guys. It seemed that Ryan was enjoying being mistreated by him, especially when he said that he was going to steal all her gold. But in reality, he did not want to steal anything, guys. He only wanted to use that golden chalice as a vessel. The scene returns to planet Earth in Nive's timeline. Sitting on his bed, she asked if he had already prepared everything for them to begin the journey. He adjusted his cap and said that he had already gathered everything he would need. She even said that once they started the journey, he would spend a long time away from home. And he agreed, saying that it was fine, because he knew that this mission to save the world was very important. Do not ask me how he immediately believed all of this, guys. I do not know either. He went to his mother's room and said goodbye to her without her being able to hear him. And he said that this was also to save her. Outside, he asked Sinui where they were going. He looked up because he was sensing something extremely terrifying. However, she held his hand, telling him to stay calm, and even said that her goal was to reach the moment of the apocalypse to see whether something had truly cursed his body. Meanwhile, Linzoi was using that goblet that he had called a vessel. Thus, he began chanting magical incantations. He was trying to summon a new power. All of this was to discover the whereabouts of that world. He said that the past and the present were inside his body, and because of that, he wished to summon the Lord of Time. The Lord of Time was responsible for merging the two planets, planet Earth and the magical planet. And thanks to the Guardian of Time and Space, he had made it this far. And so he continued reciting the chant, until he finally saw his homeland. And from above, he could see Japan, China, and Korea. But at that instant, interdimensional portals began appearing around him. The great Lord of Time asked whether that human truly thought he could cheat the stars. Our protagonist became angry, saying to that old fool that he would not allow the world to be destroyed. Meanwhile, Sinui ended up taking Linzoi from planet Earth to New York City. The boy asked how he had been teleported to that place, and the girl, smiling brightly, said that she had brought him to the exact moment when the apocalypse would begin, since the apocalypse started in the United States. But the big guy got angry, saying that he was only a high school student and that he did not know how to fight. Besides that, he was feeling a terrifying aura, and Sinui said that it might be Bermote. She said that she believed that when Bermote entered this world to bring about the apocalypse, he must have placed a kind of curse on all humans so that they would not be able to ally themselves with the gods. She looked up and waited for the exact moment, thinking that something was going to fall from the sky. But then she heard a noise behind her. Linzoi said that they were those girls who kept chasing him at school and even asked how they had ended up in the United States. Sinui said that she did not know either, and even imagined that perhaps Bermote was using the power of time to interfere with the timelines. At that moment, she figured it out, guys. Bermote really was manipulating time, and he was basically interfering with everything. The girls kept telling Linzoi to stay away from that girl. They truly were being controlled by an evil energy. Linzoi lamented this and asked Sinui if there was any way to save those girls. And even though he did not like them, they were still his classmates. At that moment, Sinui grabbed them with her tentacles and said that she was doing it only to restrain them, so that they would not hurt themselves even more. However, a bald man wearing dark sunglasses appeared behind them, saying that in fact he was not going to let them escape. The guy was standing on top of a helicopter, and when he landed below, he introduced himself by saying that he was the current president of the United States. I think the author must have used some illicit substances while writing this part of the story. It is impossible. Sinui asked whether the president was also a servant of the evil god Bermote, and the man said yes and even stated that Bermote would bring the apocalypse to Earth, and the evil god had promised that he would save him and the inhabitants of the United States from this worldwide destruction. Linzoi began to understand a little more about what was happening, and the man kept saying that this boy would be one of the chosen ones to try to save the magical world, but that would interfere with his god's plans. That guy was basically working for Bermote, and because Bermote guys controlled time, he knew that the humans summoned by the creator goddess could stop his plan to control all timelines. That is why he placed this curse on our protagonist so that he would not ally himself with the gods, and he even brainwashed them into believing that the gods were the evil deities that needed to be fought, when in reality, the true evil god was Bermote himself, who was behind everything. Sinui asked the president what she would need to do for him to let the two of them escape alive, but if he insisted on trying to eliminate her husband, she would certainly eliminate him first. The man laughed and said that since he was on the side of the god Bermote, nothing would stop him. Meanwhile, in Linzoi's timeline, he was arguing with Bermote, the Lord of Time. The god Bermote wanted to dominate the entire universe, and he basically accomplished this by first manipulating the creator goddess into going insane. At that moment, Zero appeared there. He said that he had always waited for this moment. Even though he had been defeated many times by Linzoi, his plan had finally succeeded. Linzoi asked if Zero was the reincarnation of Bermote. Laughing, Zero said yes and even asked why he thought he had been attacking the gods from the very beginning. And he was also responsible for eliminating several time travelers. He did all of this to create the true paradise, and that paradise would be brought by Bermote. In a serious tone, Linzoi called him a traitor. But Zero kept saying that he had not betrayed anyone. In fact, the creator had been insane all this time, and if she were not removed from power, she would put the entire universe at risk. He even said that, in reality, the time travelers had been interfering with Bermote's plan, and that if it were not for the time travelers, the world would have become a paradise long ago. And in truth, the real traitor was Linzoi himself, who had married gods, who were his true adversaries. However, our protagonist knew that the Eldritch gods were not the true enemies, but rather Bermote. And Zero still kept saying that all this time he had been the one on the right side of history. Our protagonist asked whether he also carried that curse, and Zero said yes, he did. He also could not stay very close to the Eldritch gods, because his heart would begin to hurt intensely, and he even revealed that both of them had this curse, because they were the same person. Just as Linzoi had divided the creator's body, the two of them were also the division of a single being. Zero said that he was the spirit of Bermote, while Linzoi was the body of the god Bermote. Our protagonist did not believe this and said that it was a lie, but Zero said that in reality, when that body was separated, it ended up being sent to Earth and was reborn in the body of a child. He ended up becoming the son of a woman and grew up there on that planet. He grew up and became very popular, but the memories of the god Bermote never surfaced in his mind. In the same way that he was the spirit of Bermote, Linzoi was the body. He had not revealed this from the beginning because he imagined that sooner or later Linzoi would awaken his memories. Yeah guys, this is a huge revelation, but keep watching because it gets even better. Zero began using a dirty trick and started using his transformation power. He transformed his body to look exactly like Sunui's, and said that if Linzoi wanted, the two of them could continue living together for all eternity, without being destroyed. He moved very close to Linzoi's ear and said that it would be a pleasure to be his wife. But our protagonist slapped Zero and said that he would not fall for that dirty trick. Zero laughed and said that it was very difficult to convince his other half that he was wrong. But Linzoi said that it did not matter whether that was true or not. He loved only Sunui, and he wanted to spend all eternity with her. But he also wanted to restore the lifespan of his companions who had been taken from Earth. He was going to bring back all of his companions who had died in this world and give them a new life on Earth, the life they were meant to live. But Zero kept laughing, saying that it was impossible. Even if Linzoi had 50 billion more years, he would not be able to accomplish that goal, because it would be impossible to bring all those humans back to Earth. Linzoi knew very well that Berremote controlled time, and that was one of the powers that the evil gods also possessed. However, this place that he had created using the dragon goddess's goblet was basically a power strong enough to oppose the god Berremote. At that moment, our protagonist held a book and said that he was one step ahead of Zero. These books contained records of time. It was practically an infinite library of books. Zero laughed and asked what that had to do with anything. He had already checked all the timelines, and the chance of Linzoi successfully restoring all humans back to Earth was practically zero. However, Linzoi began flipping through that book. Zero asked what kind of time record he was searching for in that notebook. After turning the pages for quite a while, he said that if the past had been rewritten, there should be some record of it in those books. Then he found a page containing a photograph of himself with his wife. Zero asked, "What does that have to do with anything?" He did not understand at all. Linzoi said that this was the photograph that showed his marriage certificate with his beloved wife. Because he was married to an eldritch goddess, he allowed her evil power to corrupt his body. Thus, he had practically become immune to the corruption of the god Bermote, who was also an evil god. He even said that he knew very well that Zero could be working with Bermote and would try to rewrite his memories. However, he had already prepared himself and created a time chamber using Hilden's power of gold, who was that dragon goddess. Zero was caught by surprise because inside that time chamber he would not be able to rewrite Linzoi's memories. The tentacles began moving across his body, showing that his love for his wife was so strong that he had basically gained immunity against the evil powers of the other gods. A symbolic form of Sunui appeared there, saying that she loved him very much, and thanks to Sunui's power, he would not let Berremote control his memories. Meanwhile, back on planet Earth, in the other timeline we see that the President of the United States had been defeated. He said that the future of this land would be in the hands of the goddess Sunui. And so the man ended up giving up on life. Meanwhile, the spirit of the mother goddess was there helping Linzoi survive the corruption of the mind of the god Berremote. He had promised her that they would have a child together, and that child of theirs would become the new creator god. The girl was surprised because the corruption from her power really was helping him. He even said that he had discovered the reason for that corruption inside his heart. Basically, it was protection against the god Berremote. Meanwhile, in the other timeline, those two girls were freed from the curse of the evil god. Sunui said that now that her husband was safe, she would return. And she also said that she had found both the reason and the cause of the curse in his heart. Basically, guys, for those who did not understand, it was Berremote who placed this curse in the hearts of the temple travelers so that they would not get close to the eldritch goddesses. However, that curse was the reason he fell in love with Sunui. That is why he said that this curse was what had been protecting him against the god Berremote. He was basically making a pun here just to mock the evil god. Because he was inside that time chamber, Zero would not be able to control time with his little hourglass. But the evil boy kept saying that he highly doubted that this small chamber could stop his powers. However, when he tried to use his spells, he realized that they were not working. Linzoi truly was tearing apart all the timelines that the god Berremote had destroyed. And he also said that he would not allow Zero to dominate the universe. Laughing, Zero said that this was not enough to defeat him, much less to defeat the god Berremote. Thus, he ended up using his hourglass, which has the power to turn back time. He was basically trying to make our protagonist return to being a little child, just as he had done before. However, something ended up grabbing his leg. It was Linzoi himself, saying that he would not let him escape from the time chamber. The book ended up closing, and at that moment Zero realized that he had been teleported somewhere else. This was the Temple of Myriads, the place that Linzoi himself had written into existence. This space had been created by him, which is why his power inside it was practically infinite. At that instant, he snapped his fingers, and the spirits of all his fellow travelers from Earth appeared in that place. Zero realized that Linzoi had already devised this plan a long time ago. Since Berremote always kept resurrecting Zero because our protagonist always defeated him, our hero discovered that the only way to defeat him was to imprison him inside the Book of Time. The magic of turning back time would not work in that place. The spirits began thanking Linzoi, saying that he was very close to making their souls return to Earth. Laughing, Zero said that he had to admit that Linzoi's plan had been very well orchestrated. And with a mad laugh, he said that Linzoi was very arrogant for thinking that he was the smartest of all. Trying to defeat him in a place where neither time nor space existed really was an excellent strategy, but it still was not enough, because time outside, beyond that book, was still continuing to flow. Our protagonist asked whether he was sure about that, since he was not alone. And at that moment, Sinui appeared again, saying that she would always be by his side. Linzoi became angry and asked how she had gotten there. Niv said that it was because they were husband and wife, and it was natural for a couple to face hardships together. Sitting on his lap, she said that she could not wait until the time came for them to have a child together, and thus create the creator god. Holding his wife in his arms, he said that he would leave that place as a prison for Zero, and as soon as they got married, they would save everyone. The scene shifts to another timeline, guys. A third timeline. Someone was writing a story, and in that story was exactly everything that was happening. And she said that, in fact, Linzoi ended up kissing his wife with great passion. The one writing that story was Sinui herself. Lilith asked the Divine Mother Goddess if she was writing that story that she had been creating for such a long time. She even said that the story was kind of silly, but Niv became extremely furious because Lilith was saying that her story was not good. She told Lilith to take it seriously, because Linzoi was having a fierce battle against Berremote at that very moment. At that instant, Sinui said that she was going back to her room, and we see that she was holding that exact same book that Linzoi had been holding. She said that after that day, the world forgot Linzoi, and viewed him as if he were a character from a book. But she did not forget. No one remembered Linzoi fighting against Berremote. In the eyes of other people, the time travelers were merely a children's story, but she knew very well that all of it was real. Yeah guys, if you did not understand anything here, do not worry, because I will explain it. In another timeline, it is understood that Sinui was writing the entire course of the story, not Berremote. But from what I was able to understand, that timeline is basically an extra timeline, a bonus timeline. Meanwhile, Linzoi was still there fighting against Zero. Zero said that he would not give up, and thanks to Berremote's power, he would be able to defeat Linzoi even inside the Book of Time. But our protagonist said that he had been prepared for this moment, and at that instant, a spiritual being wearing armor appeared behind Linzoi. Sinui said that she would help him with her power, and said that she would help Zero discover his past so that he would stop working for the god Berremote, and realize that he was on the evil side. Our protagonist asked what that was, and she said that it was a memory sphere that contained the emotional records that a person had experienced. Zero asked whether the Mother Goddess had really managed to use such a power, and Linzoi said that he should not underestimate his wife. Thus, Sinui threw that sphere into the air, and at that moment, that sphere emerged from inside the book of that other Sinui who was writing. Upon catching that sphere, the Sinui from that third timeline said that she had an idea, and that she was going to start writing. She began writing a different past for Zero, and this started to interfere inside the book. And at that moment, Zero was teleported to his past back on Earth. He opened the door to his room, saying that this was merely one of Sinui's hallucinations, created when she threw that sphere into the air. And when he opened the door, he ended up seeing his father and his mother. The boy's mother called him Ling, calling him over for lunch. She even said that she had made the boy's favorite meal, and he stood there thinking that these illusions were rather strange. His father was, as always, reading the newspaper, while his mother said that she had made steamed meat. As he prepared to sit down, he kept telling Sinui, the Mother Goddess, to stop these hypnosis tricks. However, the smell was delicious, and when he tasted a spoonful, he realized that the flavor really was the same as the food his mother used to make. Ling's father kept making jokes about the food. Then the boy's mother hit his father. After that, she kept asking whether they did not like her cooking, and even said that she put a lot of effort into making tasty meals. He realized that his mother was truly acting exactly the way she always did. It was strange for the hallucinations to be so perfect. He ended up standing up, and his mother asked what he would like to eat the next day. He said that he wanted pork, and he even asked the supposed hypnosis clones of his parents what his favorite game was. His father answered that it was Dragon Quest, and as he kept asking questions to his parents, they kept getting every answer right. At that moment, he realized that it was not a hallucination. These were his real parents. The boy's father even accidentally let it slip that he had been saving money to buy a new game for his son, and the mother went over and took the money from his wallet. After that, she gently patted her son and called him to help her wash the dishes. And so he began reliving the memories of his past, exactly the wonderful life he had on Earth. He even played video games with his father, and at that moment he realized that his life here on Earth had been very good, and he wished that his life could continue like that for all eternity. He even gave a satisfied smile, remembering the good moments he had experienced. However, he managed to return to the book. He realized that those memories were real, and were not merely hallucinations. At that moment, another Zero appeared. This Zero was saying that the time travelers truly believed that after defeating the Demon King, they would be able to return home. He even asked the other Zero whether he had enjoyed that vision he had of Earth and whether he had liked it. That meant that this Zero was a traitor. The boy began saying that no, he was not a traitor. However, this other Zero who had mysteriously appeared pointed his hand forward and began using a power, die. And thus he began casting a spell. However, great chains appeared, telling them to stop. It was Sinui's power, and thus he was chained up. That was the true body of Berremote. Linzoi said that he was not going to stand by and watch Berremote alter the memories of his dear friend Ling once again. It was confirmed, guys. Zero was not actually evil. He had simply been cursed with the spirit of the Demon King. The guy was just unlucky, that is the truth. Laughing, Zero said that he was also going to take Linzoi's body, because both of them belonged to him, since they were the most powerful bodies. Linzoi also did not know that Zero was a good person, and when Sinui sent him into the past, Linzoi saw that that boy had a good heart. He even assured his friend that he would do everything possible to bring him safely back to Earth, because that was where true humans belonged. They never should have come to this place. Remote, in Zero's body, kept saying that Linzoi was getting too full of himself, believing that he could defeat him. And with an evil laugh, he said that he was also going to take Linzoi's body. At that moment, our protagonist felt something striking directly into his mind. Those chains that had imprisoned Remote were shattered. And meanwhile, he said that he would impose a restriction on the boy and began chaining up his very own symbolic heart. At that moment, the protagonist's mind was hurled upward. Sinui realized that only her husband's body remained there, and that his mind had been thrown outside the book. All it took was separating the mind from the body so that the body would remain there completely emotionless, and then it would be very easy to take over it. Sinui began shouting, telling Linzoi to resist the pressure, but since that Sinui was merely a projection of consciousness inside the book, he said that it would be very easy to remove her from there, and using only a weak spell, he managed to make that projection of her disappear. She realized that Linzoi's mind was drifting outside the book, but Remote kept laughing and told Zero that he would still regret betraying him in the end. At that moment, the book that Sinui had been writing began to glow. At that moment, Zero was also thrown out of the book. Sinui ran over asking Linzoi if he was okay. At that moment, she realized that he had hidden himself inside the melons. She asked how he had managed to get out of the book she was writing. Then he ended up explaining that he was battling Remote and that his mind had been thrown out of the book. He had become tiny because that was only the power of his consciousness, and his real body was inside the Book of Time. Sinui began feeling guilty and also became embarrassed by the situation, because it had been thousands of years since she had last seen him. Using her hair, she wrapped the tiny boy up, and with great affection she said that she would protect him. And in the background, Zero kept saying that he was also there watching everything and that it was embarrassing. And the two of them ended up becoming shy. At that moment, the book began moving on its own, until it reached a section that had not yet been finished being written. They wondered how Remote was managing to rewrite history even while imprisoned inside the Book of Time. Meanwhile, we see that Remote was managing to control Linzoi's body, and he was only interested in the protagonist's body because it was an extremely powerful body. Thus, he began to undergo brainwashing. Remote was convincing him to defeat all the Eldritch gods and thus rule the world. They would begin by defeating the humans of planet Earth, because they were responsible for being sent to this world and interfering with Remote's plan. They ended up passing through that portal, and from above, Remote kept showing Ling's body how evil these humans were, because they only thought about work and money. Humans do not possess even the slightest bit of kindness, and besides that they are egocentric and also evil. He could very well defeat all humans, Remote kept saying. However, he would give a countdown, and when the number reached 0, all humans would be reset. He would perform a worldwide reset, creating new laws and a new order throughout the world. At that moment, back in the third timeline, Lilith desperately opened the door. She ended up seeing an embarrassing situation where the tiny Linzoi was being squeezed by Sinui. She misunderstood everything. It was all a misunderstanding, and she apologized for interrupting the goddess's intimate moment. But afterwards, Sinui explained everything to Lilith and said that another timeline was being destroyed by Remote. A brief explanation here, guys, which Linzoi ended up giving. He said that Remote had interfered with all timelines, and because the goddess Sinui exists across several timelines, she also has the power to rewrite history. That is why she was writing the story inside that book, which was precisely the book in which he had imprisoned the evil god Remote. I know it is a little confusing, and if you want to understand a bit more, at the end of this video I will give some explanations because I know the story is a bit complex. Basically, he was trying to convince Lilith to help him return inside the book to stop Remote from controlling the entire universe. He even made up an excuse, saying that humans can only recharge their power by using the power of the mother goddess's tentacles. And in the background, Zero kept saying that this was a lie, because the boy was shameless. The skull-headed guy appeared, telling the mother goddess to go outside and take a look because something was happening. And when she went outside, she realized that the influence of the evil god Remote had also affected that timeline. Baru ended up explaining to the mother goddess that Remote was trying to dominate all timelines. There were a total of 406 timelines. It is a number that I do not even know how to write. Zero said that he had been deceived the entire time and had served as Remote's representative, but because of that he learned a few things about the evil god. In reality, that body they had been seeing the entire time was still not the real body. Remote was only using Zero's body as a vessel, the boy kept saying. Linzoi asked Sinui if she was ready to save the world, and the girl said that she was ready to face anything by his side. Thus, they decided to go after the other Eldritch gods from the first timeline, to see whether they would help. Maya said that she was not very interested. Sinui explained that the god Remote was going to take over all timelines, but even so, Naya was still not very interested, guys. She even said that she would love to help them, but she needed to sell a few houses because she still had not met her sales target, and if she did not sell that house today, she would be fired. Niv even said that the world was going to be destroyed, so meeting her target would not matter at all. But for a worker, the final day to hit the target was the most sacred thing of all, she kept saying. Next, they went to Ryan, the dragon goddess, to ask for her help in facing the evil god Remote. Sinui, as always, explained everything, saying that Remote was going to take over all timelines. But time costs money, and since the dragon goddess was very interested in wealth, she kept saying that she would not spend her precious time trying to fight an evil god. Next, they went to Simon's clinic, but the doctor was on medical leave. Naive even asked, how can a doctor be on medical leave? Returning to the third timeline, she became very sad, telling her assistants that the gods were not reliable at all. Linzoi asked whether they could not ask other gods for help, because he knew very well that there were many other gods. She shook her head, saying that they could not count on the others, so all that remained was to try to fight him alone. Lilith tried to warn the mother goddess that it would be very dangerous for her to battle that monster with only herself and Linzoi. But that was not what she was trying to do, guys. She used her power to summon all of her sibling gods. Saman asked why she had performed an emergency teleport. Naya kept saying that she still had not met her sales target, and the dragon goddess said that wasting time meant losing money. However, Neve explained that this was an urgent situation. They needed to gather together to fight the god Bahamut. At that moment, a book ended up falling beside Naya. It was a purchase and sale contract, and Linzoi kept saying that he had bought the house for Naya so that she could help. He had also gathered several capitalist books from Earth to give to the dragon goddess and teach her how to manage and multiply her own money. When she read those capitalist tips, she became very emotional, saying that the humans of Earth were truly wicked. We can clearly see here that the author hates capitalism, right? He even said that he had several other books from Earth to give to the gods, teaching them various human techniques. Simon kept saying that he would join him because all the gods there were already agreeing. Senui asked where the other goddesses, Clara and Darkness, were, and her assistant kept saying that the two of them were in an eternal labyrinth. They are two gods who have not been shown yet, guys, but they will appear shortly. The scene immediately cuts to Vittoria together with Mars, and they had been captured by a cult. She had been trying to escape with Mars at that moment, when Mars ended up revealing that he was evil. This cult kept saying that Miss Vittoria was actually not real, and even said that she needed to stop this little act already. And the one speaking through those followers was none other than the goddess Clara. Clara was a celebrity, and she liked being worshipped by the humans of the fantasy world. She basically had a cult made up of those people worshipping her. Vittoria kept trying to understand what was happening, and Clara explained that Vittoria was not just an ordinary human, quite the opposite. With a rather bored look, she said that there was no need to explain much, because all of this would be resolved very quickly. But to be brief, she said that there is an eldritch goddess who has the power to create stories. She created so many stories that she eventually became extremely bored. Because of that, she would transform herself into characters and enter her own stories. Keep that in mind, guys, because it will be very important. That goddess fell in love with her own stories, so she would erase her own memory to live within the stories as if everything were new. But this time, the god Bahamut ended up interfering in that goddess's story. That is why it was important for the goddess Clara to put an end to Mars and Vittoria's play. Clara even asked whether the two of them had not recovered their memories yet. Then she remembered that she needed to finish the story so that they could return to normal. So she snapped her fingers, and her cult followers brought in a bed. She said that the two of them there, the couple, Mars and Vittoria, should hurry up and begin their wedding night. Vittoria, completely embarrassed, grabbed her knight's arm and started pulling him away, saying that this cult was crazy. However, Clara told them to stop being difficult and used her power. This caused a magic circle to appear beneath them. They felt the magic entering their bodies. And at that moment, she was possessed by the power of love, and immediately grabbed the hands of her beloved. She said that she had always loved him and had always wished to spend the rest of eternity together with him. Mars ended up taking Vittoria into his arms and carrying her to the bed. They closed the curtains, and inside, you know very well what happened. Clara explained that these two were actually the goddess Darkness herself, who had intentionally erased her own memory in order to live the lives of those two characters she herself had written. She even became a little embarrassed, asking whether they had already done that in there. At that instant, a huge explosion occurred on top of the bed. The goddess Darkness finally returned to normal, recovering all of her consciousness. And we can see that she was truly very beautiful, guys. Darkness ran over and pinched Clara's cheeks, asking why she had dared to end her story. Meanwhile, the eldritch gods were battling in an attempt to enter the book and stop Bahamut. The goddess who looked like a mummy began punching that protective barrier, and Simon used his dragon technique, but nothing could break that barrier. Inside, Bahamut was saying that he would wait a little longer before completing his global domination. He was trying to manipulate Linzoi, telling the boy that those evil gods were the entire cause of the world's destruction. Since Linzoi's body was without its mind, it was basically an emotionless being easily manipulated. However, whenever he looked upward, it seemed as though he felt that the people outside were on the right side. Both Lilith and Rai tried to talk to Linzoi inside the magical barrier, but he could not hear them. Bahamut even told Linzoi not to listen to those eldritch gods, because they were evil, and wanted to prevent the boy from returning to Earth. However, it seemed that Linzoi's body was not allowing itself to be deceived. Outside, they kept lamenting, saying that the barrier was extremely powerful. However, at that moment, Darkness and Clara ended up appearing through a portal. Darkness apologized for having been absent for so long, since she had been living through Vittoria and Mars's romance. Lilith became angry, saying that the mother goddess and Linzoi had been suffering greatly while trying to break that barrier. That was because they had returned to the Temple of Myriads to ask for help from the spirits of the heroes who had traveled from Earth. Our protagonist introduced his wife and said that he had married an eldritch goddess. Linzoi's friends did not believe it, and kept saying that this goddess was evil, and that she was actually supposed to be his enemy. However, the red-haired guy, who was the leader of the protagonist group, said that they should listen to Linzoi and hear what he had to say. But first, he had a very serious question. He asked Linzoi whether they had already done that, guys. And he is not suggestive at all, right? Upon hearing that, poor Senui became extremely embarrassed and even squeezed Linzoi there among the melons. That shameless blonde girl kept saying that she would teach Sunui how that should be done. But Hein from the past, the blonde guy, slapped his friend and told her to stop being so shameless. Rias, being Linzoi's best friend, said that he trusted the boy and would listen to everything he had to say. Then our protagonist explained that the Earth they had wanted to return to had already been destroyed by Remote, and they were shocked. However, they could use Sunui's power to go back in time and restore Earth, but that would only be possible if they destroyed Remote. Hines kept saying that if Earth had been destroyed, then they needed to unite in order to defeat Remote. At that moment, Sunui began using her power to gather all the spirits. If she could cast a large enough spell, she could teleport everyone inside the magical book. Meanwhile, Darkness was using her feline power. She said that she would break that barrier with her most powerful attack, and with Clara supporting her, she began singing magical songs. However, nothing worked, guys. It seemed that that barrier was truly indestructible. Darkness was even startled, saying that it was the most durable thing she had ever tried to destroy. It seemed to absorb all power. After that, she was thrown backward, and Clara was sent flying, asking whether her friend was alright. At that moment, the blonde hero Hein appeared, saying that he would defeat the god Remote and thus help the gods. But Darkness asked who this smelly human was, and he became furious, saying that he had just introduced himself. At that instant, a portal opened, and it was precisely Sunui's spell. She had arrived there along with all the traveler heroes from Earth. Guys, Lilith was surprised, and Simon asked whether it had really worked. Who would have thought, guys? The humans would be fighting alongside the Eldritch gods to defeat Remote. Past Hein, who was our protagonist's friend, ended up greeting present-day Hines. He even said that he was the hero's ancestor and ended up showing that he also liked dressing as a girl. Present-day Hines also took off his clothes. And so, both Hein and his great-great-great-great-grandfather had peculiar tastes. Thus, they confirmed that they truly were descendants of one another, and stood there embracing each other, completely emotional. And Rai commented that humans are truly very strange. The heroes had managed to return with their maximum power, and the blonde girl immediately used the heavenly magma core power. And so she launched that colossal power at the barrier. From inside, Linzoi realized that the humans and the Eldritch gods were managing to break the barrier. So he told Remote that it seemed the humans were going to get inside. The evil god said that it was impossible, and even if they got in, the countdown timer was already nearing its end. Dr. Simon realized that there was a timer, and when it reached 0, the Great Reset would occur and all timelines would be erased. That was why Sunui needed to act quickly and defeat Bermot together with Linzoi, because otherwise it would be too late. But she would need to make Linzoi's mind, which was that tiny version of him, reunite with the body down below, so that they could become stronger. Then she asked what the strongest memory he had of her was. He began to remember, and the memory that came to his mind was the one from the second timeline. When she found him at the school, she was introducing herself, saying that in the future they would get married. To help him remember a little more, she used her power and dressed herself in that school uniform. But the shameless guy kept saying that it would be better if she wore that swimsuit, because then he would remember more easily. The blonde girl, who is completely shameless, went over there saying that Linzoi was truly learning how to be a more masculine man. It seems that our protagonist here is not a beta. Meanwhile, Hein managed to break that barrier. He said that they should take advantage of the opportunity and throw Linzoi down there, because the barrier could restore itself. Time was short, and the blonde saintly heroine said that she would help them enter the magical barrier. She even said that there was no need to completely restore Linzoi's memory in order to make his mind return to his body. She then held her husband's little hand and told him not to worry, because she would go inside the barrier and recover his body. She looked down below and felt a little afraid, but she needed to act very quickly, because if time ran out, Remote would erase all timelines. Time was running out, and she ended up entering by herself. Hien said that it would be very dangerous and that she would certainly be eliminated. The Saint even said that the body had probably already been taken over by Remote, and now Remote was controlling both Zero's and Linzoi's bodies, and she even thought that if all of them went in there, it would basically be throwing their lives away. Down below, Linzoi said that those people were probably not illusions, since they had managed to break his barrier. And Remote kept telling Linzoi's body that those people up there were evil people who wished him harm. However, a sweet and gentle voice appeared, saying that all of that was a lie. Neve assured Linzoi that she was real, and that she had only come down there to rescue him because he was the love of her life. The boy's cheeks turned red, but he did not remember her because he had no memories at all. But the girl gave him a very cute smile, and even became annoyed, telling him to stop pretending that he did not know her. With a pouty expression, she wondered whether he really did not remember her. Then she used another tactic. She hugged him and said that she would tell him a secret, revealing that in the future she would be his wife. Linzoi's body ended up pushing her away. He said that he would not believe those people who wanted to manipulate his mind, but she was already using her tentacles. And at that moment, she put on that swimsuit because she knew he liked it. And she even wrapped him in her tentacles to make the boy fall even more in love. Yeah, I do not think there is any man who could keep himself under control around a platinum-haired girl. The shameless guy kept staring at that area and even got a nosebleed. Remote, who was concentrating all of his power on erasing the dimensions, was not aware of what was happening. Meanwhile, the dragon goddess commented that it seemed Remote was about to reveal his true body, and said that Linzoi had only been trusting Remote because his memory had basically been erased, and the first person he saw was the one he immediately trusted, and that was exactly how animals worked. She compared our protagonist to a duck and a duckling. Simon asked Lilith whether she thought the mother goddess would be able to convince Linzoi's body to merge with his mind again. However, all they could do at that moment was wait. Linzoi ended up pushing Sunui away once more, and said that he would not let those evil gods stop him from returning to Earth with his companions. And he even said that she should stop insisting, otherwise he would act aggressively. A little sad, she said that things were not supposed to happen this way, and ended up crying. And as the tear fell, she said that he had promised her that he would always stay by her side. At that moment, Linzoi's body began to remember everything. He remembered when he performed a summoning and proposed to her, and he also remembered the romantic moments he had spent together with her. All of those memories began flooding into his mind, and so, little by little his memory began entering his body, and his mind began filling his entire brain. A bright light began shining intensely, and from above, the tiny little mind of Linzoi merged with him. And thus, the fusion began to happen, and Buramote realized that his plan was being threatened. Linzoi was the only living being in the entire universe who could possibly stop Buramote's plans. And all of this was the fault of that mother goddess who had ruined the entire plan. Because of that, Buramote said that he would eliminate her and launched a spell toward the girl. She was about to be struck directly. However, Linzoi managed to stop it at the last instant, and furiously, he asked how that evil god Buramote dared to attack his wife. He ended up holding Sunui by the waist, and completely happy, she asked whether he had remembered everything. And he said that he had and even apologized. The countdown had reached 3. Darkness lamented, saying that the entire universe would be reset. And at that moment, Buramote began revealing his true body. He laughed, saying that his plan had been completed and that he would be the victor. Thus, the number reached 0, and the Great Reset began as his body awakened. Gigantic tentacles began appearing across all timelines, and he started destroying numerous cities. The apocalypse had begun across all earthly planes. Darkness said that their plan had failed, that they had arrived too late, and that Linzoi would no longer be able to defeat this supreme evil god. Buramote's tentacles began spreading throughout the entire universe, and Sunui stood there, deeply worried, asking Linzoi what they should do, but he said that he had been prepared from the very beginning. He had devised a plan to defeat the gods, so he believed that the magic he had prepared would work against Buramote. He believed that if he defeated this primordial form of the evil god, all the chaos would be restored. Then he stretched out his hands. That protective shield began to shatter, and everyone who was up above could clearly see what was below. He began gathering all the magic from that shield into his own body. This was a spell that he had been preparing for more than 1,000,000 years. Buramote rushed forward to attack him, but then he used the primordial sphere of rebirth, and thus a gigantic arrow shot toward Buramote. The tentacles were already almost reaching him, but then that arrow struck Buramote's epicenter. The monster began screaming in pain, and Lilith was surprised because it seemed to be working. The attack was so powerful that Buramote began to be hurled away. It was destroying the monster from the inside out, and so a massive explosion occurred. The mummy goddess grew gigantic and protected the other gods from the explosion. And so everyone started running toward our protagonist to see if he was still alive. Lilith noticed that Sunui was safe, and she was there carrying her husband. With a smile, they said that Buramote had finally been annihilated. And so they all began celebrating. With tears in his eyes, Hein said that although Earth no longer existed, they would at least be able to say that they had avenged their homeland. Linzoi ended up extending a goblet, and the one who appeared there was Simon. And the woman kept asking when exactly he had shown up. Then our protagonist revealed that Simon had actually discovered a way to bring Earth back. Simon said that if all the eldritch gods used their powers, they could restore every timeline that had been erased. At that moment, the specter of the creator god appeared. The goddess said that Buramote had finally been eliminated, and in order to restore Earth and the other timelines, the creator goddess would have to sacrifice her own life as well as the powers of the eldritch gods. Everyone there agreed, saying that it was fine. They would give up their powers to restore the other timelines. Thus, all of them offered a prayer to surrender their own powers. And so the creator goddess gathered the power of all the eldritch gods, who were essentially fragments of the creator goddess herself. With that power, she promised that she would restore every timeline. And so an explosion occurred, and the lands truly returned to existence. She said that the timeline in which Buramote existed had also been erased, and now Earth was no longer at risk of being destroyed. Humanity would return to life without having any idea that all of this had happened. She also said that the gods could travel to Linzoi's homeland. The creator goddess also thanked all the travelers, because thanks to them the entire universe had been saved. And she said that she would leave behind this divine tree so they could return to Earth. Her time was running out, so she began saying goodbye to the eldritch gods. She apologized for having gone mad and for allowing the world to become true chaos, but she was happy that her children had managed to save the entire world. She told Linzoi something very important. She said that the next generation of creators would be formed by him and Sunui. Before the creator goddess disappeared, he said that he would complete this mission. Thus, he embraced Sunui tightly and said that there was still one thing left, their wedding. And so the great day of their marriage at the Holy Church arrived. He was nervous, and the one who appeared there was Zero, saying that our big guy looked incredibly stylish. R and his ancestor became emotional over the wedding. Naya and Simon commented that those two were very strange since they were wearing skirts. R. Hilden was reading the book How to Be a Capitalist on Earth, and commented that humans were truly evil. Clara commented that Rai should not be reading that book during the wedding because it was disrespectful. At that moment, everyone started shouting that the bride had arrived. Linzoi nervously adjusted his tie, and so the two prepared to open the door. Sunui truly looked beautiful, absolutely stunning. And when she entered, everyone was left speechless because she was truly beautiful. A little embarrassed, she began walking toward Lin's. The guy's cheeks turned red as he said that Sunui was the love of his life. Thus they arrived before Naya, who would conduct the wedding. She asked them to make their vows. They were to remain together in joy and sorrow, in wealth and poverty, and in health and sickness. They were to honor those vows and remain together for all eternity. And so they both said, "I do." Therefore the groom could kiss the bride. Completely embarrassed, Naive asked them to wait a moment. Blushing deeply, she said that she still was not ready. Our protagonist, being very patient, said that it was fine, and that they should wait until she felt ready. But she touched his shoulder, and surprisingly, kissed our dear Linzoy. The boy was finally reaching those precious moments. She said that now she was ready, and he stood there completely in love. The saint said that they should hurry and begin the wedding night, and Sunui became extremely embarrassed, and asked the saint to be quiet. She said that she had heard from the saint that it was common in human weddings for the bride to spend the wedding night in front of the guests. She became deeply embarrassed just thinking about it, but our protagonist said that the saint was lying because she was shameless. He even started scolding the saint, asking what in the world she had been thinking by saying something like that. Later, they all gathered to say goodbye to the humans because they would be returning to Earth. He said that this journey had lasted only 50 million years because he had been trapped in a time loop. Now the humans would return to Earth, and they even thanked Linzoy, saying that they could only return thanks to his efforts. That night, our protagonist was on his honeymoon. Sunui was extremely embarrassed and said that she was finally ready to reach those precious moments. He lay down, and the girl kept saying that she would do anything he wanted. He says that he loved her very much and that he had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. And so, they end up going under the covers. The girl becomes very embarrassed and says that she will love him for all eternity. The guy was more in love than ever, and early the next morning the sun rises, shining throughout the entire mansion. She wakes up beside her husband, and they had quite a night. He says that she should not keep calling him Linzoy but rather my love, and gets ready to give her another romantic kiss. However, someone tells him to wait a moment. The one standing there was none other than Simon. The woman says that she paid attention to them during the night, and noticed that Sunui still had not become pregnant. And the guy immediately gets angry and even kicks Simon, sending her flying outside. Completely irritated, he says that that goddess was ruining his precious moments. It seems that the guy does not get a single moment of peace, guys. He also saw that there were people spying through the door. It was Rai Hilden together with Lilith and Naya, and they were even taking pictures. Our protagonist opened the door very angrily and wished everyone good morning with a sinister look. A few minutes later, he asked why his house was full of people. It was extremely rude for them to come the day after his wedding, especially because it was a precious moment with his wife. Naya says that she was fired. Simon says that her clinic was destroyed. Clara says that her world tour was cancelled, and Darkness says that she had run out of books to read. On top of that, the dragon goddess says that she earned so much money that her life became boring. Naya says that since they had nothing to do, they decided to come to Linzoy's house. And extending her hand, she reveals that all the gods will spend the honeymoon together with Linzoy and Sunui on planet Earth. Yeah, guys, it seems that our dear protagonist does not get a second of peace in this life. Just imagine how unlucky this guy is. Very shy and a little embarrassed. Sunui keeps saying that this is something exclusive to married couples, but Linzoy gently pats his wife's head and says that he will handle it. Taking that magical book, he says that he will spend his time together with his wife, and if the gods get out of control, he will imprison all of them inside the book. Naya assures him that they will cooperate. That is because after they offered all their power to the creator god to restore the timelines, the eldritch goddesses lost their status as gods. Basically, they became weaker. He also knew that these girls were dangerous if left on their own, because they could get into trouble. That is why he agreed to take them to Earth. However, he makes all of them promise that they will behave themselves. And on the other side of the door, we see that Lilith was listening to everything. Later, when they were preparing to travel to Earth, Sunui asks where Lilith was. Baru says that in fact, Lilith was feeling very unwell, so she returned to the mansion to rest. Linzoy thinks that it is actually better that they do not have to say goodbye to Lilith, because she might throw a tantrum. And as they leave, Baru wishes all of them a good trip. I do not know, guys, but I think that guy seems a little suspicious. At that moment, the carriage arrives on Earth. He decides to use his power to transform that carriage into a modern car so as not to attract too much suspicion. However, Sunui comments that Lilith is right there in front of them. She even asks her secretary when she arrived on the human planet. But then Lilith begins gathering magical power. She clenches her fist, and immediately afterwards she fires that magical power at Linzoy and Sunui. She had erased their memories, and our protagonist ended up waking up in his bedroom. He turned off the alarm clock and got up to go to the bathroom, but when he opened the door, he got quite a scare. Sunui was in his bathroom taking a shower. He asked who this girl was and what she was doing there. She also did not know who he was, and immediately grabbed the hot water shower head and sprayed the boy with it. At the bus stop wearing a school uniform, he looks at that mysterious girl and asks what she is doing there. She was very beautiful. In fact, she was far too beautiful, so he says. Earlier he had called the police saying that this girl had broken into his house, but the police officer said that it was nothing serious and told him to stop making prank calls. This girl seemed to have absolutely no idea about anything. She did not know how anything in the modern world worked. She did not know how to brush her teeth or even do basic skincare. At that moment, Sunui approaches and asks what that device he was fiddling with was. Lilith had simply erased our protagonist's memories and made the two of them live as if they were complete strangers. The story is going to get much crazier from this point onward, guys. If you think the story ended just by defeating Baremote, you are very mistaken. Returning to the story, the girl does not even know what a cell phone is, much less what it is used for. She also asks why everyone was standing there in that place. And Linzoy explains that they are waiting for the bus to go to school. As soon as the bus arrives, he gets on and looks back, asking whether the girl is not going to get on as well. At that moment, the door closed and he realized that she had remained standing outside. So he shouted for the driver to wait a moment because the girl had been left behind. Next, the driver opened the door and Linzoy pulled Niv's hand, saying that she needed to move quickly. The guy was literally calling her slow. In her mind, she kept wondering why he was being so kind to her. It almost felt as though she knew him from somewhere. Then, she remembered the dream she had that night, where she had a wonderful night with Linzoy. The girl became completely shy and asked herself why she was thinking such naughty things. The bus shook quite a lot, and she slipped, falling on top of Linzoy. Very embarrassed, she apologized, and he asked worriedly if she was alright. A few minutes later, they arrived at school. The girls became completely excited, saying that Linzoy had returned to classes. Sanui ended up tugging on the sleeve of Linzoy's clothes. She said that she had the impression that she knew him, and even asked whether they had been close. In a somewhat rude manner, Linzoy told her to stop bothering him. He thought that she was just another one of his fans. Meanwhile, someone appeared and kicked the poor guy in the face. The one standing there was Lilith, and she said that that jerk should stop bothering her lady. Linzoy said that he did not know who that red-haired girl was, much less why she had angrily kicked him. Lilith told him to stop bothering Miss Sanui. Wait a second, who are you? I do not know you. The girl introduced herself, saying that she was Miss Sanui's best friend and that her name was Lilith. At that moment, Linzoy's fan club became extremely furious, since the red-haired girl had struck the one they loved. However, Lilith became extremely angry and asked how those foolish humans dared to threaten her. But the fan club did not back down, guys. They stood there looking for a fight. And the one who appeared to calm the students down was the principal himself. He said that young people were very energetic, but that they should focus on their studies, and thus Linzoy's fan club ran away. Lilith made a mischievous face because she realized that her plan had worked, and that Miss Sanui no longer remembered her husband. From a distance, Clara was noticing Lilith's entire evil plan. She even sent a message in the Eldritch Gods group chat, saying that Lilith had found some way to cast a spell that erased Linzoy's memory, and also the Mother Goddess's memory. But one of the comments told Clara that it would be impossible for Lilith to erase the Mother Goddess's memories, and that someone more powerful must be behind it. Probably someone wanting to take the Creator God's throne, since the descendant who would become the next god would be the child of Linzoy and Sanui. That is why some evil god was trying to interfere. Yeah, guys, it seems that simply defeating Baremote was not enough. Lilith was trying to convince Sanui that Linzoy was a bad person. And in the group, they kept commenting, saying that Lilith was probably working with someone to prevent the Mother Goddess Sanui from having a child with Linzoy. Because of that, the gods planned to discover what was happening. Next, Lilith kept saying that Sanui should not get close to that scoundrel. But Sanui said that she did not know this Lilith, and asked why she was pulling her arm. At that moment, Lilith turned around and said that the Mother Goddess liked making jokes, and even asked whether she truly did not remember her best friend. But Sanui did not remember, guys. It seemed that Lilith had erased the memories completely. The red-haired girl started crying, saying that this was not supposed to happen. And through her tears, she asked whether it was true that the Mother Goddess did not recognize her. That crying ended up attracting the attention of the other students, who stood there watching. Deep down, she was wondering what had gone wrong, since Sanui was only supposed to forget Linzoy and not everyone else. But since Sanui had forgotten her, perhaps that was actually good, because she could take advantage of it. So she began saying that the two of them had actually been extremely close, and started giving some misleading ideas. Guys, since you already know that she is in love with Sanui. She even kept saying that the two of them had shared a very deep friendship, if you know what she means. And unintentionally, Sanui ended up moving her tentacles. Without meaning to, Sanui placed the tentacles in a forbidden place, and that left both of them embarrassed. Next, Lilith said that it was not a problem because they were best friends. I do not know what kind of best friends do that, but alright. After that, they went to a convenience store to buy some snacks. Sanui asked what kind of thin layer covered the bread, because it was very strange. And since Lilith did not know either, she made something up, saying that it was dried slime jelly. Next, Sanui asked how they managed to keep the cabinet so cold, and the red-haired girl lied again, saying that it was some kind of freezing magic. She was basically making excuses just to avoid admitting that she knew nothing about the human world. After that, they reached the checkout counter, and the store clerk said that the total cost was 12 coins. Lilith had done some research and saw that humans made payments using their cell phones. Then she unlocks the screen and shoves the phone in the employee's face, asking if that was how you made the payment. The guy gets angry, saying that she must read that QR code, but Lilith, she didn't know how to do that and starts to get worried. However, someone appears and makes the payment. Linzoy said he was paying for those sweets for Sanui, because she was a very kind girl, and Lilith stands there dying of jealousy. He approaches and hands that bread to the girl, saying that next time she could ask him for help. She gives a very cute smile, thanking him. And I bet that right then the guy completely melted. Later in the classroom, he keeps thinking about Sanui, and said she was so beautiful she looked like a manga protagonist. The guy was so in love that he started drawing her in his notebook. At that moment, he realized he was truly feeling in love, and began tearing out the page, no matter what he thought. In the end, he always remembered Sunui. Then, at that moment, a woman, who was the teacher, right? The disguised Simon, introduces Sunui as a new student and even tells the girl to sit behind the protagonist. He looks outside and sees Lit all angry, and Simon keeps telling her to stop getting in the way of the two of them. The female Simon, she was there disguised as a teacher, only to make the two of them fall in love again and have a child. It was typical of a romance anime to place the protagonist next to his beloved, near the window. The wind blows and a little leaf ends up hitting the girl's nose, and because of that she sneezes, causing her tentacles to bloom. The boy got a huge fright because it was not normal at all for girls to have tentacle hair. Since she had no memory at all, she can't control the tentacles and immediately goes to grab him. The students find this very strange and immediately grab a phone to record it and post it online. All nervous, she apologizes to Linzoy and says she doesn't know what's happening to her hair. He realized the girl was an ordinary girl and was in a panic about this situation, so he tried to calm her down by putting his hand on her shoulder and said they would solve this together. When he touched the girl's shoulder, she got even more nervous, and because of that, the tentacles went out of control. He realized that when he touched the girl, the situation got even worse. And it wasn't just him being squeezed, it was other students. And he even comments that his ribs are going to break. Simon, she appeared again, now in a nurse's outfit. She told him she was trying to find a way to make the two of them regain their memory. But Linzoy doesn't understand anything. He even says that if ordinary people on Earth discover the existence of eldritch gods, that could lead to another apocalypse because of the butterfly effect. Therefore, she ends up using the memory loss illusion capsule, enveloping the entire school in a spell for them to forget what they saw. The big guy, he realized something had changed, and at that moment he ends up finding himself in a parallel universe. He even goes looking for the other students and asks where those desks went. But at that moment he ends up opening his eyes and wakes up in the school infirmary. He looks to the side and Dr. Simon, she was there asking if the boy was feeling okay. He didn't know why, but he recognized her from somewhere. And Simon asks if he got his memory back. She says it's normal. He felt a bit confused because he was bewitched by a memory loss spell. She even tells him to lie down on the stretcher next to it because she is going to move this stretcher to another place. And when he gets there, he realizes Sunui was lying on top of a magic circle. The two Simons, they were thinking that maybe if Linzoy had the final moments there with the mother goddess, he might regain his memory. The tentacle magic immediately starts enveloping him, and the two Simons, they start celebrating, thinking this will work and make him regain his memory. The guy is intertwined by the tentacles, and little by little the two get very close. Then she shouts out of shame and asks, "What is happening?" And at that moment she starts remembering the intimate moments they had on their honeymoon. She remembers herself saying that she loved him very much. But at that moment they are interrupted by a noise from outside. It was Linzoy's fan club, and the girls ask if by chance he was in the infirmary. They were indeed, folks, and they were inside the stretcher under the covers. But the two Simons keep making excuses, saying they are not there. The doctor realizes they are about to be caught red-handed, and then the blonde ends up opening the curtain. However, the two of them were no longer there. In the group, they comment in the chat that they don't know what happened to Linzoy and Sunui. The boy managed to escape and went to the rooftop to try to meditate on what had happened. When he looks to the side, he gets a fright. Sunui, she was still there, somewhat tangled up with her tentacles because she couldn't get her hair back to normal. It seemed like the tentacle was attracted to Linzoy, and she keeps holding her own hair, asking him to step back. He even asked why her hair was like that. And all shy, she says she doesn't know and apologizes. But he says, completely embarrassed, that her tentacles are very cute and even reaches out his hand to help her get up. At that moment, when their hands touch, they end up recovering all of their memories. The memories were coming back little by little, and he starts stuttering, saying that he remembers her. The girl's soft touch was extremely familiar. Besides that, the sweet scent of the girl's hair was extremely pleasant. He places his hand on her face and says that he is feeling very much in love. He even feels that someday they will get married. At that moment, Sunui ends up pulling him by his clothes and plants a huge kiss on the boy. Yeah guys, if these two are not the best couple, then I don't know which couple is. Her memory had completely returned, and she asks why it took him an entire day to remember her. And the big guy keeps apologizing. While hugging his wife, he says that he needs to find out who cast that magic that made them forget their memories. At that moment, Sunui remembers that it was Litlit in the parking lot. He says that it is true. Now he remembered as well, and even says that they need to find out why Litlit did that. He also realized that something was chasing him when he was sent to that parallel universe in the infirmary. Sunui says that someone wants to ruin their honeymoon, and that this person probably wants to create the child who will become the creator god. At that moment, she realized that Linzoy fell in love with her again, even without his memories. And he stands there all shy, saying that it is true, because it is very difficult to control himself near such a beautiful goddess. He hugs her again and says that it is better for them to keep pretending that they have amnesia in order to discover Liliad's true plans. He even comments that they should go back to pretending now because someone is coming through that door. There was someone hidden back there, and it was Clara. And she becomes completely smitten, saying that the two of them made a very cute couple. And the one arriving at the door was none other than Lilit barging in. She gets very angry, telling Miss Sunui not to get close to this jerk. She goes over there all furious, telling that damn guy to take his filthy hands off her lady. And after grabbing Sunui's arm, she keeps saying that she is going to take her away from there. Linzoy was talking to her mentally and said that Sunui should try to discover all of Lilit's whereabouts. Meanwhile, he will also try to find out who is giving power to Lilit. because she alone would not be able to erase both of their memories. Going down the stairs, the redhead gets very angry, saying that she warned her best friend several times to stay away from that guy. With an innocent look, Sunui asks, why should she stay away from Linzoi? At the same time, the mother goddess was worried, because she had never seen Lilith with such a serious expression. Sunui says that Linzoi does not seem to be such a bad person, and tries to find out why Lilith is so upset. At that moment, the redhead comments that, in fact, the mother goddess has already been deceived by him. She says that she will show Linzoi's true face and starts casting a spell there with her hand hidden behind her back. She ends up creating a magical notebook, trying to deceive the mother goddess. While showing the notebook, she says that she will reveal Linzoi's true face, and then Sunui will discover why that guy is a jerk. And when opening the notebook, she ends up seeing the drawings that Linzoi had made of her. That was clearly an illusion, but Lilith keeps telling herself that Sunui will not find out. But Sunui becomes enchanted, saying that Linzoi really is a very talented guy, and that he drew her perfectly. Lilith was even shocked because she did not imagine that her lady would give such an answer. She starts feeling sick and asks why Sunui is so in love with that jerk. Meanwhile, there was someone watching everything. That woman's butler appears and says that perhaps erasing Linzoi's and Sunui's memories is not the most effective method. The girl gives a somewhat sinister look and asks this assistant what the ideal plan would be then. Would she not let those two act on their own? After all, that group of evil gods had infiltrated the school. She asks the butler if it would not be better to simply eliminate them, since perhaps erasing their memories is not effective. But thinking about it carefully, those two were acting according to her script, says the girl. She tries to climb back onto the chair, and we see that she is quite short. She tells the butler that he will be in charge of taking care of both Sunui and Linzoi, and the butler says that he will do everything his lady desires. And we see that this butler was actually Baru, that assistant of the mother goddess. Guys, I knew that guy was very suspicious. And now guys, who is this new character who is behind everything? I admit that this work is becoming very interesting, guys. It has been my favorite work to narrate. So, if you want me to bring the continuation, comment Time Traveler. And since this story is quite complex, I will give some brief explanations here for those of you who got a little confused. In the main timeline, the humans from Earth were summoned by the creator goddess. That is because she had gone crazy, because Beremote wanted to dominate the universe and began fragmenting her. When the humans arrived, the creator goddess had already fragmented into several gods, and Beremote began rewriting history. Beremote rewrote history so that the time travelers would think they had to defeat the gods and not Beremote himself. And he even placed a kind of curse on all the time travelers so that they could not ally themselves with the eldritch gods. That curse is the one in Linzoi's heart, which is why he could not get close to Sunui. When the protagonist traveled back in time to discover this, he saw that it was Beremote who was rewriting all of history, and he only managed to realize this when he performed that summoning from the Book of Time. And all the changes and rewritings that Beremote had made were recorded there. However, there was also another timeline where someone was writing those stories, and it was Sunui herself. At that point, guys, it is implied that there is a multiverse with many things happening at the same time. And thanks to that writer, who is called the narrator, that Sunui, our protagonist, managed to reverse the curse. So, basically, he returned to the book, defeated Beremote, and made his allies return to Earth. But now he needs to have a child with Sunui herself, according to the prophecy, because that would give birth to the next creator god. However, several other evil gods wanted to prevent that. Those evil gods that have been shown so far, the eldritch gods, were only fragments of the creator, everyone. So, there are other evil gods. And now things have truly begun, guys. A battle of gods against other gods to see who will bring about the baby that will become the new creator god. The story is getting better and better, which is why it is important for you to leave a like and a comment. This story takes a lot of work to make, guys. I have to translate it from Mandarin. And there are many speech bubbles where the translation ends up sounding a bit strange, so I have to read them over and over again in order to understand. I am seriously not kidding, guys. I spent an entire week just making this video. So comment and share as much as you can, and also leave a like, because that helps a lot. And if you want to help even more, consider becoming a member. It is very inexpensive and already helps a lot. I am going to leave 2 recommended videos from the channel here that I am sure you will enjoy. So I will see you there. Other than that, that's it. Thanks, and see you later, everyone.